And we're live. What's going on, everyone? Sauce Kenny here today. I hope everyone had a good week. My problem was that I tried to start this stream a lot earlier. Some of you may have caught it, may have not. And my whole stream just crashed. So hopefully no mishaps happen today. And we're going to do an interesting video today that Tim Pool's recently been going viral for his debate with, I believe his name was Lance. I forgot what his name is. From Surf TV. He's a lefty. And I want to gotta give my commentary throughout the video. I clips a couple of them. It's about I have like 36 minutes worth of clips here and there. So I'm just gonna dive right into it. I'm not gonna really much delay. Get warmed up with the first 6-minute video. This is gonna be about Jordan Neely. We all know the situation that happened. If you haven't been following, Jordan Neely was like a homeless person, I believe, and he was threatening violence against people that was on the past. He was threatening violence against passengers on a train, and he was subdued by 3 individuals. One particular was a Marine. He ended up choking the guy out, and he ended up dying because of it. So this is some context I'm adding before I just jump into the video. But enough of me talking. I digress. Let's get into the video. I guess that's actually started.
What is described as anarcho-tyranny, in that you had 25 people pushed onto subway tracks in the past year. You've had like a woman get raped on a train in Philadelphia. And we don't hear a single peep from any of these politicians, from any of these activists, until someone actually stops the guy. If you go back 7 years...
Kills him, right? Kills him. He killed him.
Sure.
Yeah.
So when someone is being violent and then someone else acts in self-defense of others and the person dies in the process, now there's all of a sudden calls for, okay, so this guy should be criminally charged, but there was no call for stopping the 25 people being pushed on the subway tracks. That's an ongoing and acceptable thing, I suppose.
I'm never going to sit here and try and defend people pushing people on the subway tracks. That's a crime. Like, that's terrible.
Attempted murder.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if they die. So that's horrible. No one's going to be on the other side of that argument. But in terms of like the guy who just got killed, isn't, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, doesn't in self-defense the proportionality of what you're doing has to be in response to the actual aggressive actions of the person, right? It has to be proportional. Is that correct? So you feel in your mind that it was a proportional response for him to choke him out to death.
And here's what the left try to focus on. They try to focus too much on emotionality in a point. To me, logically speaking, he was a threat to other people on the train, right? It took 3 people to stop him, if I remember correctly. So if it takes 3 people to stop you, you are obviously being very confrontational, very threatening, and people can respond how they believe to respond. Now, if it took 3 guys to take him down, I don't think he was rational enough to be talked down to. Like, hey, stop it, stop. No. At the end of the day, this is one of the problems I have with this assumption that they're making, is that when these people, they always want to react when it's too late. There was all types of opportunities to prevent this from happening, but they didn't want to say nothing. They didn't want to do anything. And then randomly, once the person is held accountable, or if it's their narrative, oh, black guy got killed by a white Marine, lefties are anti-military, anti-white people, boom, fit the narrative. Now they want to care about it, right? And then Tim brought up an interesting point as well, is that they cover stories where people were getting pushed off the train station randomly. 25 people died in front of a train station. These people who are willing to get violent, the left has nothing to say about them. But the minute law-abiding citizens decide to defend themselves or be proactive in preventing themselves from becoming victims, now the left want to go out and protest, right? And it seems like these things always seem to happen in democratic ran cities, right? Because they're soft on crime. This is what happens when you're emboldening criminals, because law-abiding citizens will feel like they'll have to take the matters into their own hands. I'm just saying. So either the government becomes tough on crime and the police do it, or the citizens themselves will do it to prevent themselves from being victims, because people can only stand by so long and let tyranny go on so far. And yes, that was a sad outcome. Yes, he had died, but there needs to be some responsibility on the homeless man's part too. And I like how, even on all the information, we don't know everything that's out, the left immediately takes, it was a mental health issue. He was having a mental episode. He wasn't hurting no one. Well, the only reason he hasn't hurt nobody is because the people that restrained him was proactive in preventing that from happening. I digress. Let this guy finished up, and then I'll pause
in
throughout.
that situation because he was going to become such a threat to the person who choked him out.
But you made a big leap right there.
What's the lead?
You're ascribing intent to the Marine to kill.
Oh, I'm not saying he intended to kill him. I never said that, but he did end up killing him, right?
That's immaterial.
But what has to be material, Tim, has to be, is he doing what he's doing?
Are you making a proportionality argument, or are you making?
Yes, I'm asking you that because what he did proportional to the threat?
Yes.
So the threat that he was going to do.
It is proportional to subdue someone that is threatening other people and saying he'll die in the process.
And end up killing him, even if that was
see now you're doing it again. You're ascribing intent.
No, I'm not ascribing intent. I'm saying the results. This is what happened. The guy's dead. He's dead, right?
Results are immaterial to the proportionality of action.
Purple Honey, yes. LOL. In the same breath, they'll disregard mental health if the person wasn't someone they agree with. Yes, it's and this is some of the problems I have with left people who argue for the left is that they don't have the same beliefs. Like, I don't know. I start to think like compared to conservatives, the left they don't center themselves on some type of morality. Their morality is very subjective, right? Very relative. And the only morality I think the left argues for is whatever helps me win, whatever helps me gain power. I think that's the only morality the left really argues from, right? So if they make a statement, for instance, like my body, my choice, for the vaccines, they go, oh no, it's not your body, it's not your choice. You got to think of other people. But when it comes to abortion, no, the woman gets the right to choose. She has the right to decide. There's no anyone's business. They can make these two different arguments because they don't actually have an objective center of morality or principles or beliefs. Because the only morality, principles, and beliefs, in my view, is that the left wants to win, get power. So this is why I think the left like to stay in this vague, undefined. You can't really pitch them on anything, because whenever you ask a lefty to clarify his position, he don't want to clarify, because end of the day, when you stand on something, you open yourself up to criticism. And the left don't like criticism. That's why they don't like debate. This is why they don't like free speech. This is why they like censorship, because they can take out ideas that they don't like or they find inconvenient to argue. Because to them, it might means right. The ends justify the means. If they have to lie, cheat, steal, misrepresent the other side's arguments, straw man them, they'll do that. Because at the end of the day, they're not interested in actually being right. They're only interested in having power, having majority rule. This is why I think the left, they have a different premise when they try to debate or argue. They try to make themselves seem the more empathetic one. They try to make them positions seem as popular as possible, right? Oh, who would be? They'll word things in a way where on its face it'll seem harsh to disagree with. Or I don't believe it's right to kill anybody. Well, it's true. Like, it's not right to kill anybody, but it depends on what that person is doing. If someone's trying to defend themselves and the criminal or the person, the aggressor, happens to lose his life in that interaction, people in that context, people understand. Okay, yeah, it may not be right, but it's understandable and it's justified. While the left will take a position like an absolute position. Oh no one should die. Who's going to agree with that? No one's going to disagree with that statement on its face. If you said, hey, no one should die. Yes, you're great. Hey, no one should die. But we don't live in idealistic fantasy la la land. This is real world. And sometimes the consequences of that is someone will pass away. Now, under the circumstances that person passes away, the context in which that person passes away is very important before we pass a judgment of whether it was right or wrong for that person to pass away, or was it justified. And I think that's a lot of nuances that the left don't want to actually get into. Right? I just think they like to misrepresent. Or I don't know. To me, I think the left has a strong imagination. They like to imagine your position is, and then they argue against that imagination that they conjure up in their own mind, instead of actually hearing the person, what they're saying, and actually either getting clarification on what they're meant and argue that, or they'll just mischaracterize the argument. You're gonna see this with Tim. When Tim already said, "Hey, you made a leap there. You're already prescribing intent." He tried to make it seem like the Marine went out of his way, like, oh, I'm gonna kill this guy, like I'm gonna use this as an excuse. Like he's already like imagining that the Marine wanted to kill him, instead of saying, hey, it was just the result of him intervening, and him not complying, him struggling. We don't know the full video. I don't know. I haven't seen the full video, but I understand the context surrounding that situation. But I think I've been rambling a little bit too long. I got a lot of clips I got to go through. So I want to get through this video as fast as I can. So I'm going to stop talking and let the video play.
So the proportionality of action in your mind was justified to what he was doing, his actual actions.
He held the guy on the ground while he said call 911.
and killed him and choked him out until he died.
You're doing it again.
No, you keep saying I'm doing it again. I'm saying this is the end results. I'm not saying this is what he meant to do. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. I don't know what's in his heart. Neither do you. None of us know what he meant to do that day when he woke
absolutely.
up. Right?
If someone is threatening other people, you are allowed to subdue them.
And then would it be like an involuntary manslaughter?
So see,
No, but this is what happened. It's to the point of death. So you have.
It's not a criminal.
It's not. I'm not saying he intended to kill him. That's the difference, right? But if he ended up dying as a result of that, was that proportional?
Yes.
He needed to be killed.
No.
Or he could have killed.
Yeah, Purple Hunt. Yeah. It's always, and that's my point. My point is they don't operate in reality. They always say, "Oh, I would have done this if it was me. I would have done that." And I said, "No, it wasn't you." Right? Like Mike Tyson says, everyone got a plan until they get punched in the mouth, and that's the situation. Like, end of the day, I can't act like, "Oh, you're supposed to react this certain way." I don't try to control other people. I understand. I just want to make sure, hey, was it justified for this person to react this way? Given the context of the situation, hey, person was had a knife on me, I have my gun. I didn't want to take the chance of him getting close. I told him stop coming to me. He still approached me, and I shot him. Justified. He gave you a couple warnings, gave you opportunity of your own volition to stop the aggression. You continue with the aggression. What do you expect the person to do? Become a victim. And this is the argument that left seem to have, is that, oh, we want people to be victims, not victors. You can't do something to somebody if they didn't do it yet. But if I'm trying to prevent something, if I'm trying to prevent myself from becoming a victim, should I have some recourse to do that? Yes. Like, yeah, bruh. It wouldn't make no sense otherwise. But the left don't see it like that. It's just like, oh, the homeless, oh, mental health. And you're gonna see it throughout the video. Watch, you're gonna see it. Because he's already kind of doing it already, and then Tim's catching him on it. And this is a great clip. Like, Tim did a good job with this interview right here, because it shows the left. Like, this is why we want free speech. So people can, like, at the end of the day, good ideas, bad ideas, who cares? Let the arguments fall on his face, right? And let the audience decide what they think about these things. No need for reporters to come out here and frame the argument a certain way, or just try to say, oh, look, this is bad, this is misinformation. No, we don't need all of that. Have the two people debate it out. Get some pushback, push and pull, whatever, in the discussion, and people will make up their own minds about what they agree with and what they don't agree with. And I think that's what we need to get back to. But hey, I digress. Let me continue with the video.
Hold on, stop that. You can't. You keep trying to say needed to be. No.
But that's what happened.
The Marine.
That's the end result.
You're saying the Marine tried to kill him.
No, I didn't say that.
Then why,
you are saying that I'm saying that. You're putting words in my mouth. I'm saying that's what ended up happening.
Let me respond. Then why would you say needed to be killed?
Because what he did to him, his choke out, ended up with the guy dying. So that was the end result. So his proportional response to what he thought was a threat was that I'm going to choke him out. I'm not trying to kill him, but I'm going to choke him out. Whether or not he dies is going to be something that we're just going to remain to be on the cards, right? This is chance. We'll leave it up to chance here.
So you are making a huge leap right there.
There's no leap, Tim.
Yeah,
what he's doing is that proportional. Is choking someone with the possibility of death. With the possibility of death.
Yes,
okay, so
absolutely.
So
I'll tell you this. Let me tell you. So if someone tried illegally entering my home,
sure,
I will use whatever force necessary to stop them from illegally entering my home. Right?
Exactly.
I have the legal justification in the state that I live in to use whatever force necessary to stop someone from entering my home illegally. Now, you can't invite someone in, and there's actually some legal barriers here. Like, if someone actually walks up to your house and the door is open and they walk in, that's actually not an illegal entry. Mm-hmm. It is to a certain degree, but it's like trespass. Sure. It's like your door was open, there was no obstruction, and then you'll make an argument about entering the domicile could be considered fourth-degree burglary, depending on which state you're in. If they actually open the door and enter, they've now committed felony burglary. And you are entitled in West Virginia to use whatever force necessary to stop someone from illegally entering your house.
Yes. And that's the same argument we can justify using in the train station. If someone feels threatened, right? It's at the end of the day, it's subjective view, right? More like the left want to come out and, because at the end of the day, the left, it's hard for them to really argue on moralities because they believe in subjective relative morality. Like, oh, your morality is as equal as my morality. There's no objective morality, right? But they'll try to make points where it seemed like, hey, you're trying to say this is objectively wrong. Oh no, I believe it's wrong. Okay, so who the hell are you? You think it's wrong for the person to react a certain way. It doesn't matter how you react. You're not in that situation. That person's in that situation. If the person felt, hey, I don't feel safe letting this guy go unless he's unconscious, hey, so be it. Just because you would operate a certain way, that's you, because there's different factors with you. You could be bigger, you could be stronger, right? The people's like, yo, so what gives you the right to tell someone how to operate in reality? Conservatives can make that argument because conservatives believe in an objective morality. Like there's an objective right and wrong, because we, as conservatives, we believe in principles. Hey, my principle says I'm doing something right, I'm doing something wrong. That's it. What our left will be like, oh, I decide what's right or wrong. So if you decide what's right or wrong, how you can make that same argument that the person is doing something right when it's right or wrong is when it's only merely subjective for you. And I think this is a hard argument that the left tries to make, right? Because then they go, oh, I would have responded like this. It's not right that they responded that way. It's like there's no consistency there. And I think this is where I get not annoyed, but get confused. Because I think this is why they like vague. That's why they like to be vague. Because you'll try to guess their position, and they always have the back in their car to saying, oh, I didn't say that. Oh, that wasn't my actual position. Okay, what is your position? They don't want to clarify, because they know once you put them in a position to clarify where they're actually standing on, you can actually criticize them and actually go back on them. I don't know, man. So far, this dude ain't making any sense. He in reality, maybe in an idealistic world, what he's saying would work, but in reality, this is not a good strategy, because you putting a lot of trust in strangers, people you don't know. And a day when there's a threat to your life, you neutralize the threat to the point of where you feel comfortable handling them. For a man's threshold for, hey, I feel safe is different from a woman's threshold for, hey, I feel safe. If I have an intruder in my house, as long as he's in a safe distance, I'm good. For a woman, it may like, hey, I need you out my house. And if the person doesn't comply, what the woman has to do? The woman doesn't have the strength to physically move the man out of her house on average. I might, and even then, it depends on the guy. Context matters a lot. But to ascribe this general rule, oh, people shouldn't have guns. Okay, you're just making people who have a strength advantage more likely to victimize or criminalize against someone who's weaker than them physically smaller than them. A lot of the guns that exist in America, they're used for self-defense. I think cases like 500 times in a year. There's more guns used in defense than they're used to kill and suicide, homicide and suicide. But the left don't want to agree with that. Oh, you want to remove guns away from everybody when guns used for crime is at a smaller percentage than guns used for self-defense. It's like school all over again. So one person talking class, the whole entire class gets punished instead of that one individual. It's crazy. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back into the video.
That doesn't mean you just intend to actually kill someone. So in terms of, we're out in the street, someone is threatening someone else. You are legally entitled to subdue them. Now,
even if that even in the act of doing that, you could kill them.
Yes, absolutely, okay. Absolutely. Because where you're going with it is like, what act of subduing would be permitted in your mind then? Like holding his hands tightly?
One that doesn't have a possibility of death, I would say. Because
give me one in your martial arts expertise.
Zero, absolutely zero.
Okay, so there's
and I think.
Yeah, this is my problem too. I think a lot of the people on the left, they suffer from, I forgot what it was called. I don't know if it's called the Dunner-Kruger effect. Is they don't have any expertise. They don't have no expert knowledge on the situation, but they want to give an opinion about how to operate in that environment, right? Let's say a guy like a lefty never plays basketball, and you saying, hey, it's not good that biological males can play basketball with women. And this guy comes in and says, there's no difference. It doesn't matter. Like biological males can play with females, and there's no advantage whatsoever. And then you try to explain to them, hey, men on average are faster reaction time, more athletic, right? Stronger, bigger. That's a big advantage in sports, right? And they don't understand the context of how the attributes that I reference in basketball, how it can give the male an advantage over the female. They don't have that context because they don't have any knowledge of the game, right? And it's the same thing that's going on here. Oh, you're not a self-defense expert. Okay, what in your view would have been a better solution? He can't give you one. He don't want to give you one because he knows if he gives one, Tim can come back and criticize his choice for that. So what he'd go, let's fall back on authority. Oh, I don't have an authority. I'm not a self-defense expert. To me, appeals to authority are not a good argument for me because I'd be like, hey, the person reacted in a way that he felt comfortable feeling safe. Now, if the other person end up dying as a consequence of that, that's because of the actions that that individual has done. If that individual didn't act violently or irrationally, the other person wouldn't have reacted in that way. It's cause and effect. Personal responsibility. That's all I'm for. Personal responsibility. You're responsible for your actions. The other person is responsible how they respond to you. And if your actions justifies a certain response, you can't get mad about the consequences of that choice. Because end of the day, it was 50-50. He made a choice. He wanted to act violently. He wanted to act irrational. No one can calm him down. It took 3 individuals to... Come on. Like, I don't understand how we still argue in a way where we trying to... Oh, he was innocent. Oh, he was having a mental health breakdown. Like, it's just alibis. You're just looking for alibis. And this is the problem with the left as well, is that they want to blame everything but the individual. Hey, what part did the homeless dude had a part to play into leading into this bad road, right? Two wrongs don't make a right, but end of the day, you have to consider the 2 factors that the both parties brought into the interaction. One person was acting violently, one person responded, and the response happened to kill the person. That's it. I don't understand how he can keep arguing like this point. But hey, I digress. I'm probably rambling too long.
I can contend that no one here has any, right?
Well,
am I in a judo room?
I just watched a lot of movies.
No, but
Sharp elbows.
but no, none of us have black belts. We don't know this shit. We're just a bunch of people who talk on the internet,
but now
right?
going black belts. I mean, I have hostile environment training, and I have some minimal martial arts training. Minimal. I've done some kung fu, taekwondo.
So once again, there's no experts here to talk about this. Yeah.
So certainly will contend I am not an expert. However, if someone is threatening harm against another person and 3 people find it reasonable to subdue him and the person dies, that person was in the process of committing a crime. If you lose your life in the process of committing a crime, I'm not going to blame the victims for this, right? Would you blame the victims for this?
When you're saying victims, you mean the people who killed him?
The people who are being attacked.
But were they attacked prior or did they try to subdue him? Do we have
You see? So, did they attack? Like, we don't know anything, but you have an opinion on it though, right? Well, we're just speculating. Okay, we're speculating too. So what makes my speculation less probable than your speculation? Tim's speculation is more probable. Hey, 3 people felt the need to hold this man down. That corroborates the story that he was acting violently. The homeless guy had a track record already. He had 44 felonies, 44 charges already. He never got charged. He never got charged for any of them, if I remember correctly. 44. So he has a track record, a repeatable pattern. Us humans, we're good at pattern recognition. So, it's more likely that what Tim is saying is more accurate about the situation than what this guy is trying to insinuate or frame. Oh, he could have been innocent. He was not minding his own business. He possibly, that's a possibility. But what sounds more probable, Tim's proposition or this guy's proposition? My view is Tim. Especially with the record this guy already had, 44 charges, 3 people had to subdue him. It was just one-on-one. Maybe the Lance's stance will be more probable, but it's not. It was 3 people. 3 people had to stop him. Witnesses. Come on. Witnesses saying, he was acting violently, irrational. He said he was willing to die, lose his life. But all of a sudden, no, it's we don't have the full story. We don't have all the facts. We don't have all the evidence. Because it doesn't support what your conclusion is, Lance, and that's why you're falling back to this argument. And this is why all I'm asking just for some consistency, man. Like follow a method of how you arrive to your conclusions, and argue that. Take that stance. But no, it's always like I gotta pull something to justify my conclusions instead of letting the evidence lead your conclusions. You want the conclusions to lead your evidence, and I think that's the disconnect that's going on in this conversation, but I digress.
Footage before the event begins.
So in New York, for example, if you go up to someone and threaten them, you've committed a crime, right? You've committed a criminal act of violence against another person by threatening them and going up to their face, right?
And so you're saying at that point you have the ability to
Purple Honey, I agree. Yep, I do feel like the people who are saying he shouldn't have been killed are the type of people to encourage assault in another situation. It's just enabled, like, the left come off cross like that. You know, a mother that mothers the hell out of her kids, and she's almost enable her kids' bad behavior. That's the left. The left do things that enable bad behavior. They're soft on crime stance, right? This homeless dude, let's say if this homeless dude got tried for one of his 44 charges that he got, he'll probably be in jail right now, and he probably wouldn't be in the situation. He might still be alive today if the left did their job. If the New York DA did their job and tried the man, charged the man, put him in jail, held him accountable for his previous bad actions. Because at the end of the day, what happens when you don't discipline? I'm a parent. I'm a father. When you don't discipline your son or your kids, it escalates. They go like, oh, dad let me get away with this. Let me do something even more. Let me push the boundaries even more. Criminals operate in the same way. Oh, I did 44. I broke 44 laws. I have 44 charges. They didn't try me on none of them. Oh, okay. I can just act a fool. You give them permission. You enable them to do even more stuff until they run into the wrong people or the right people who's going to be like, nah, we're going to prevent you from harming us and other people. And then you end up losing your life in the process. This is how these things happen. Right? As a conservative or as a person, as an individual, I'm more for preventing issues than reacting to issues. I want to be proactive, not reactive. And it seems like the left is very reactive to things. They react very emotionally to things, and then when there was a opportunity to prevent this issue, aka put this homeless dude in jail, put this homeless dude in a mental asylum. No, they didn't want to do that. No, he's fine. Until something bad happens to him because of something he was doing, because of actions that he caused, and then he ended up dying from his bad choices. I'm just saying.
Respond with violence.
Actually, there's a video of this. Myth Informed has it. 7 years ago, this man was called a hero for diffusing violence by putting another man in a chokehold. A man in the subway was getting up in people's faces, and he was threatening them, and another man got up behind him and put him in a chokehold, and he was put on national television, and he was celebrated as a hero for doing so. So this is what I'm talking about.
There you go. The inconsistencies. It happened 7 years ago. What was the outrage then? Bruh. There was no outrage.
It doesn't make sense.
But here we are now. But for some reason, Jordan Nelly is outraged. Why? The first clip, the seven-year-old clip, I guess it was between two white dudes. No story.
Bruh.
Oh, white Marine kills homeless black man.
Bruh.
We got our story. We got our narrative. Run with it. Come on, guys. Like, yeah, this is the inconsistency I'm talking about. Bro, I expect you guys to react the same way. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm asking for too much, right? Because it seems like the left, all they're interested in is being outraged about something. Just have an argument about something. It's like they don't want to come into agreement. They don't want to agree on anything with someone. I don't know. I could just be reading too much into this, but let me continue the video. I'm about to be finished up with this clip.
Narco-tyranny. I feel like you're latching onto this completely from a point of you don't have knowledge on proper technique for subduing an individual, nor
None of us do.
nor the legal expertise.
None of us do as well.
But see that's kind of an absurd thing to just outright. Well, look. I'm going to say this guy committed a murder and should go to prison, but I'm not an expert and neither are you. Therefore, he should be convicted.
I never said that. I'm actually asking questions because these are things that I don't fully understand about. Is it legal for him to do what he did?
Yes. The short answer is yes. Because if it wasn't legal for him to do what he did, he would not be out. Like, he would have got arrested. No? Like, come on. Like, bruh. This is why they say the left don't have common sense. The result spoke for itself. The result told you what the outcome was. Oh, was this legal for him to do? Well, is he in jail? No. Okay, that means it was legal for him to do. He was in his right to do that. It's baffling to me. So here's the second clip. This is going to be more about, what is this? When do you defend yourself, right? And this is the argument that let's see if this guy can stay consistent here. I kind of watched it because I had to clip it up. It's a 13-minute video, so I'm going to get into it right now.
And there were.
Cops are not going to mess with that guy.
And that's what was reported. And there were 3 men trying to subdue him as he fought back. So there's no debate that this guy was acting violently and threatening people, and even said he was prepared to die. At that point, you have what could be a terroristic threat. I think if a guy got on a train and screamed, "I'm going to cause harm to people," and then said he was willing to die, you'd probably want to stop him, because there's signs all over the subway saying if you see something, say something. And I suppose we could go the route of when Luke Rutkowski had that video. There was a guy in a subway with a knife stabbing people, and the cop said, "We're not going to get involved at all."
Wow.
And then some guy had to try and intervene himself. It's funny, that guy's a hero.
See, and this is the problem with soft on crime. Like, the cops feel timid to do their job because they're scared of outrage, right? They can't prevent it. And then what incentives you put for the criminals? Oh, I don't have to worry about the cops. If I'm the right ethnicity, if I'm the right skin color, the cops won't mess with me, because they know if it goes south, if I end up losing my life, they know they're gonna hear it. So it gives me free reign to do whatever I want. You spared the rod, you spoiled the child, and this is what's going on with the criminals. This is what happened in soft on crime districts, usually Democrat district. This is why crime is a big issue for Americans today, because soft on crimes incentivizes and emboldens criminals to do more actions like this. To the point where the man come out with a knife on a New York subway. Cop said, "I'm not going to get involved," because he knows the DA ain't really going to prosecute him. He could lose his job. For what? He could be slandered. He could end up. This is. I don't know how to really, like.
Bruh.
I don't really know how to speak about this, because to me it's just clear cut. Hey, hold the person accountable for their bad actions. Hey, intervene. Hey, prevent this stuff. Let's be proactive. Hey, we see a guy brandishing a weapon, stop him. Who cares his skin color? Who cares? All we have to care about is his actions. Was he about to do something wrong? Was he about to break the law? Did he break the law? That's what we should be worrying about. But no, we having conversations of, oh, did the Marine do it because he was racist? We having conversation about that. We're trying to read. We try to play mind reader. We're trying to read people's minds and say, was this a racist attack? Instead of looking at the actions, because in a day, as human beings, we're bad at reading intent, but we're very good at judging action. And based on the actions, based on what the circumstances, with all the information, all the context, we can understand, hey, the probable motive was he was just trying to stop the guy. He was just trying to neutralize the threat. And the guy ended up losing his life in the process. That's it. That's a clear cut, because that's the only thing we can prove. We can't prove his thoughts. We can't mind read the Marine's mind. And this is the kind of narratives that the left goes with. And this is why they're so inconsistent. Because they put their perception and they try to mask it as if it's objective reality. And you're going to see a lot of this in this clip right here, because he has a lot of mischaracterizations, or I'll say he has a strong imagination of what he thinks happened or what he thinks is the case. And he's trying to, instead of admitting that this is just his opinion or his subjective view on things, he tried to play it off as if this is objective truth. So, hey, I digress.
Yeah, that was, I think, oh yeah, here it is. Matt Walsh retweeted Alexandra Cortez's tweet from 6 hours ago and asking specifically, what are they supposed to do? What are people supposed to do in this situation? Are they just supposed to sit there? If someone's screaming, they're gonna hurt somebody?
Yep.
You just sit there and wait until they actually hurts the person and then you respond?
And I'm just curious, honest question. We have the story from the Daily Mail from October. 25 victims have been shoved in front of subway cars so far this year. 2 victims were killed. Where was the protest?
Uh-oh.
Well, where was the video footage of it?
There is video footage of it.
Is it public?
Yes.
Public video footage?
And I can't play it on YouTube. But there's video footage of people being pushed in front of trains. And where's AOC? Where's any of these protesters? Nowhere to be.
When criminals get killed, oh my God, it was like a good person. Actual law-abiding citizens get killed. Crickets. But if you call them out on this hypocrisy, that all you hear is,
How dare you?
Seeing a pattern here? This is getting ridiculous. 25 innocent people can get shoved off a train. It don't make national news. Homeless black man gets choked out by a white Marine. National news. Everyone knows about it. But then no one knows about all the events leading up to this point. The sense of urgency or the sense of fear that the New Yorkers, law-abiding New Yorkers have going through that area. worrying about, am I next? Is something bad gonna happen to me? Imagine living in an environment like that, a high stress environment like that. You don't think you're gonna be jumpy? You don't think you're gonna be like, oh, I'm ready? And this is my problem with the left. They don't view things in the context of which it happened. They view it from their little safe, whatever they at. Oh, they don't have. I'm worried about abortion rights in Florida when I live in San Francisco. San Francisco allows you to abort your kid at 9 months. They're worried about Florida. You don't live in Florida. The voters voted for that. Why are you worrying about what's going on in Florida? You good where you at? Why are you worrying about Florida? It's the same concept here. They think, oh, it works over here. It has to work over there. No, it don't. Different strokes for different folks. But hey, I digress.
Found. Anarcho-tyranny is that when the criminals do it, as explained in, Solzhenitsyn, the Gulag Archipelago, when a criminal does this act in the Soviet Union, that's just a criminal. That's what they do. But when you, the citizen, defend yourself, you knew better.
But so you're blaming AOC for not bringing attention to this specifically? So as
Blaming?
in, like, or you're saying that
criticizing.
she's hypocritical because she doesn't talk about the people being pushed in front of trains, but
She's not hypocritical. It's just inconsistent. Like the criteria, the claim that they make of, oh, this was an injustice. Okay, but what about this injustice? What about what happened here? And what Tim's proposition, I forgot what he called it. I don't know. When a criminal do it, oh, we expect the criminal to do that. When a law-abiding citizen do something, oh no, we didn't expect that from you. Even if it was justified in retaliation of protecting themselves. They hold the law-abiding citizen to be like up here, while they have low expectations for the criminal. And I think this is like bigotry of low expectations all over again. You expect the criminal to do it, but then when a law-abiding citizen is like, yo, the law-abiding citizen is the most screwed person in America right now, especially in these blue states, in these blue cities, because they let these criminals terrorize them. And as long as the criminals don't do enough damage, the government, whatever the government think is not enough damage, $500 is like, oh no, that's nothing. Government's like, oh, that's nothing we should put people to jail for. But if they smash up your phone, they smash up your property, and it don't add up to a certain amount, the government ain't gonna prosecute them. No, wrong is wrong. A small wrong is still wrong. A big wrong is still wrong. You're supposed to be held accountable for that. But hey, you know, this is what happened when you put qualifiers for people. But hey, I digress.
about this now? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying hypocritical. No, I'm saying I have a question of why now? Why only when people are victimized and they defend themselves are we now upset about what happened on the subway?
Keep saying victimized. We're talking about a poor homeless person
who attacked.
Oh, a poor homeless person. He attacked somebody, bro. The attack was not unprovoked. So to try to paint this victim narrative on the attacker, on the aggressor, it's weird to me. To me, I guess because the left operates in a different paradigm than what someone on the right does. Right believes, hey, personal responsibility. You're responsible for your own actions. Therefore, you have authority over your own actions. And if you make a decision to break the law, expect retaliation. We expect the other person to protect themselves or do whatever is necessary for that person to feel safe. If you're a lot larger individual, people are going to use a proportional amount of force. AKA, hey, if I got a gun, I'm going to shoot until you stop moving. Because you're big enough to actually do some serious damage to me. Case by case basis. But to apply this general sense of, oh, this is how everyone's supposed to do it. As if there's supposed to be a script and everyone has to follow the script. No matter how big, no matter how strong, no matter your gender. This is how you're supposed to operate in these circumstances. Life don't work that way. But yeah, I digress.
Yes, may have been having an episode and died in what ended up being the struggle. So why are the people who were subduing him victims? What makes them victims of this?
He assaulted them.
So you have that on camera that he assaulted them first.
According
now you
to all
need
the
proof.
news reports and the police and the witness statements.
Can we see the footage? I want to see. I haven't seen that yet.
I think we can show the choke out.
So the people that was there saying, hey, this happened. You weren't there, sir. Lance wasn't there. Lance wasn't there. Lance was nowhere in the scene. All the people that was on the scene saying, hey, this guy did something. And you say, no, I don't believe none of these people that what they saying. Was the 3 people really justified in doing that? I need to see video evidence. What?
Bruh.
Yo, my head hurts right now, man. I'm sorry, guys. I keep pausing it, but I feel like I gotta say something because this is ridiculous, man. Like the stream, man. I'm stressed. Yo, I don't believe none of the testimonies of the people that was actually there. I need to see a video, bruh.
Okay, so according to the news reports, the witnesses and the police, he went and threatened violence against people, which is assault. And
Right, but you're saying he's
There's some people on the left that can make a coherent argument. It's just like many of them, it seems like they value how someone feels versus what is real, right? So if the left says, hey, I'd rather tell someone a lie as long as it doesn't hurt their feelings than tell them the truth that will hurt their feelings, because we have a different paradigm, a different value about how to address or argue someone. I don't know, man. It's good. I go on to talk about this guy because Tim has people on the left before, and they made a little bit more sense than this guy. That's all I'm trying to say.
specifically threatened violence against the people who subdued him. Do we have evidence of that?
I mean,
it's one thing for him to be in a train being like, I'm upset.
You're not
'cause
winning an argument here.
I'm not trying to win an
You're
argument.
being
I'm
awfully
asking you.
pedantic.
Awfully pedantic.
Yes,
Why
like-
would you use pedantic in this form? As in,
Pedantic?
like, I'm trying to get to.
That's the first time I heard that word. What's a pedantic? Is it being what? Is that another word for disingenuous? I don't want to
the
stop
root of
later.
this problem.
No,
right?
it's absurd to imply that if a guy walks up to a woman and says he's going to harm her, that another man can't protect her.
Right, and so this is why I'm asking: did he say to the people who subdued him, "I'm going to harm you.
Yes,
I'm
that's
going to
immaterial.
hurt you"?
That's immaterial to a self-defense claim in proportionality.
Okay.
If this guy was threatening people, right, and then someone said, "I'm going to stop you before you hurt someone," that is legal self-defense acting in the defense of others. That makes those people who are stopping the guy threatening people the victims of a violent individual who is trying to cause harm. See, I just find it fascinating that there's an effort to defend the aggressor in this circumstance, right?
Oh, so you're suggesting that the guys, even if the guys that were choking out weren't the ones being threatened, that they're still considered a victim because they stepped in to defend other people?
Well, I'm saying outright that if you're on a
You can step in and try to prevent something. This is what I'm talking about, being proactive versus being reactive. The left want to react after something happens. But if the right sees, like, if I believe as an individual, if you see something coming, right, you can predict, and this is why humans are good at pattern recognition. You can predict what could be the next outcome of that. And just because I proactively stop someone from victimizing another doesn't mean I'm unjustified because, oh, there was no victims. He didn't actually hurt anybody. You killed him for no reason. No, there was a reason why I stepped in. Because he showed himself having the capabilities to do harm to other people. And I think this is a lot of like nuanced people miss out. They just see white man kill black man. Oh my God, riot in the streets, protest. Like, and not all the full information came out. But based on what we do know, it sounds more probable that he was a threat to other people. He was acting erratically. He has a previous track record already. It's safe to say, hey, it's more than likely that these people were justified in reacting to the way they did to him. That's all we're trying to say. But this preconceived, like, oh my God, he was innocent. Oh my God, mental health issues. It's like they're always trying to find a scapegoat to justify these criminals, especially if they hit the victimhood metrics. They're always trying to find a reason to justify why these things happened to them, or it wasn't their fault. It was society's fault. It was New York's fault. It was the government's fault. We failed them. And in my view, I'm like, yo, no, you're an individual. You're responsible for yourself. It's your fault. It's his fault for how he acted, how he behaved, how he didn't go seek help. And it's also the New York state, the New York government's fault as well for not putting this man behind bars. So at least he knows, hey, there's consequences to my action. But if you don't put him behind bars and you let him do whatever he wants, are you surprised that he's going to keep doing what he's doing? No, because you didn't put no consequences. You didn't put no negative consequences to deter him from continuing his ways. This is why you punish people. This is why you hold people accountable. I don't know, man. I just think Democrats, the way they go about addressing criminals and crime, incentivize these criminals to do more of these things, and it continues to escalate until a citizen's had enough and be like, no, you're not going to make me a victim, and then something bad happens. And then you want to criticize the citizen for defending themselves or intervening into a possible altercation or a possible deadly event. Like, I don't know, man.
train and there's a guy, you're on a train, you can't get off that train. You are trapped.
Yeah,
right?
I used
And
to
a
live
guy
in this
get-
area, by
and
the
a
way. I
guy-
used to live in Flatbush. I used to take these trains every single day. I have seen this. I have seen this and worse. I have seen people in the middle of episodes where I was like, this person could potentially either harm themselves or harm me. It never crossed my mind that I need to choke them out to the point of potential death in order to protect everyone else on the train. That never even entered my mind. So that's why I'm asking you, do you have specific footage of him threatening the very people?
And then these lefties will wonder when a woman gets raped in a train, oh, I had all these men were around, no one came in to stop because of people like him. And no matter what you do, they always got something to say. Oh, you didn't do it the right way. Oh, you hurt him. Oh, you was too aggressive there. Nitpicking. At the end of the day, no, we're trying to prevent a crime. That should be like this. There should be some leeway with that, especially if it's to prevent something like that to happen to a woman. But no, and this is why a lot of New Yorkers, they're like, no, I'm not going to get involved. I'm not going to stick out my neck, because even if they do, they can get the short end of the stick. A dude, I forgot what, a store man, a grocery store clerk defending himself against a dude trying to rob him, stabbed him in the neck in self-defense. Dude ended up going to jail. And this is how criminals get emboldened. Oh, I can do stuff, but you can't? Oh, how's that fair? Jonathan Fields, what's up? Hello, Kenny. I just missed Vince's live stream, and I noticed you were live streaming. How are you? I'm doing good. A little sick, though, but I'm doing all right. I hope everyone's doing well. We were reacting to Tim's little interview with Lance. So I'll continue the video.
Who subdued and ended up killing him?
But why does that matter?
I don't think there is footage.
But like,
There is no
what
footage of that?
is it?
Okay.
What
All
is
right,
it-
well then that's all I want to know.
But what does
All
that
right.
have to do with what I said? That's why I understand your thought.
Because
Moving the goalposts.
Proportionality being that you ended up killing them, even if that was not your intent, I understand that you don't think he intended to do that. Fine, but even if that was it, were they like threats to him in the immediate present? Were they on the verge of committing an act of violence towards him that required proportional violence that ended up in death?
But it's not a requirement someone threatens you for you to act in defense of others, right? So your question is kind of in an unnecessary direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll elaborate. If you're on a train and you're trapped in a box and someone is threatening violence, then yeah, you're a victim. Because
So I've been a victim multiple times then. I was
Yeah,
in these
yes,
ways.
absolutely.
Purple Honey, that was a good point. I just noticed. They immediately believe evidence that they immediately believe the woman, but here they need solid evidence. Anything to help their position. End of the day, like I said, I think the left's only position is to win. And if it means to take a position that contradict what they said in a previous topic, so be it. The left rather be called hypocrites than be called losers or losing. And this is what I'm talking about. They'll lie, cheat, steal. They'll do whatever they need to do to win. If it means being inconsistent in one breath, my body, my choice, abortion. But when it comes to the vaccine, no, it's not my body, my choice. Anything that helps push their way, because that's all they care about. They want things done their way. It's about power in the end of the day. I think that's the only moral sense that the left have. They have an objective. They say, hey, I want this. I want everyone to subscribe to my worldview, my solutions, my way, or the highway. I'll say everything I need to do. Right? They say that a man will do anything for his ideals, and the first thing he will do is lie. And this is why I said, I think the left tends to be very idealistic about things. Ideally, we don't want the homeless man to die, but what we pragmatically and realistically, what we want is, hey, we want crime to be prevented. And if that's the case, and the consequences of that is a violent individual happens to pass as a consequence of that, so be it. That's a trade-off that we're willing to make. Because at the end of the day, I don't believe in this sense of there's a perfect solution. There's no silver bullets. There's no perfect solution. Everything's about trade-offs. If you told someone, hey, you can prevent a crime, but the criminal will die, or the crime will happen, a law-abiding citizen will get victimized, but we're able to hold the criminal accountable, most people will pick, hey, I'd rather prevent the crime from happening. And if the person doing the crime ends up dying, so be it. A lot of people will make that trade-off. I'm just saying, in an idealistic world, you want to prevent the crime and keep the criminal alive, but how likely is that? Especially if the criminal is not being compliant, if he's not listening, if he's not being, reasonable. How do you deal with someone who's not reasonable? There's only two ways you can do it. you have to be violent, or you have to put them in a situation where they won't harm anybody. And usually that's both of those options. You have to use force. And the more they escalate, the more force you have to use. And this is how a lot of these people end up dying. But you think Lance will recognize that?
Nope.
No, because to the left is never an individual's fault. It's society's fault. It's always external factors' fault. But I digress.
Okay.
It's the craziest thing to me.
I don't feel like a victim. I've never been hurt. I never was hurt by people who were going through those kind of episodes.
Other people have been.
I'm not saying they haven't.
You know,
I'm not saying this is a good thing.
25 people were pushed in front of trains.
Okay, so these 25 people who were pushed in front of trains, how is that directly related? Were these people also going through episodes? Were they also people who were homeless? Did they have mental illness?
mean-
were like...
See, and it's like he's trying to find, hey, make me care about these people. Do they have mental illness? Are they homeless? Or did they, like, no, it should be wrong is wrong. Hey, people died. Like, 25 people shouldn't be pushed off a train, in front of a train. That's wrong. Instead, he's sitting here trying to get like qualification. Like, you got to qualify why I should care about these people. Like, what?
I
let me
would
continue.
say
What's the
anybody
correlation
shoving
here?
someone in front of a train at random is like going through an episode. You know what I mean? The correlation is that crime and murder on the subway has been increasing, or has at least been apparent in the press. But I don't see you caring about it at all until it's the aggressor who gets killed.
No one, I think, on the left is going to defend this stat that you're pulling.
Then
up
why
about
put a
people
guy
being
in
pushed
prison for finally saying stop killing people?
This is like, Tim, if I approached you today and I was like, hey, do you know what goes on in Rikers Island? Have any of you done a show on what happens in Rikers Island? How they hold people in Rikers Island? Do you know what...
We not Rikers Island specifically, but we talk about prison reform all the time.
Okay,
and how
do you know
screwed up
about
it
bail
is.
reform and the fact that people die in Rikers Island waiting to have their day in court because they
Yes.
can't afford it?
And we've talked about it.
And you've
But I
done
don't-
entire
but-
shows on that.
but
And
I
you've
don't-
talked about how people literally die in prison while they're waiting for that shit?
We talked
That's
about
terrible.
okay, so we actually talked about one guy who got wrongly arrested, lost his job, was kicked out of his apartment, went to Rikers for 3 months, only to be released and then told, sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. The city owes him nothing because they considered the prosecution not to be malicious. But this is the problem, man. Like, we talk about stuff like this all the time.
But the example you just gave me was not me talking about the systemic problem of people who are poor being in
That's
Rikers
quite
Island
literally what it was.
before they get to trial. They die before they're not released. You just gave me...
That's it. Rikers Island, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't that in New York? Like, a lot of these like corruptions, the criminal reform, it seems like a lot of the cases, it seems like be Democratic ran. I don't understand. Right? They don't prosecute people who's supposed to have felonies, but then Donald Trump do something, you trying to escalate his misdemeanors into felonies. But a dude who actually committed a felony, you want to downgrade it to a misdemeanor. Can't speak today. Misdemeanor. It's craziness. But they talking about corruption. Like, I don't know, man. A lot of the stuff that we deal with in our country nowadays, man. I think if a lot of people were knowledgeable what actually goes on in our country, a lot of the blatant corruption or the incongruent, like the inconsistencies in our justice system, a lot of people will be like immediate response. Vote these people out, put in more qualified candidates, because the more educated America is, the better candidates will get. Because you can't just blatantly lie to a politically knowledgeable person, because we know what's possible, what the government can do, and what the government can't do realistically. So you can't make false promises like Joe Biden, I'm gonna cure cancer, and people going, oh, I'm gonna vote for him. Like, no. That's an extreme example, but that's what I'm talking about. Like, they could say something that sounds plausible, but if you know your civics, you'll know, hey, government can't really promise that. We can't really do that. Not without doing this. Like, you understand the cost of what the person is saying. You can see how probable they can actually achieve that goal. And I think this is a big and important reason why a lot of people should go do their own research, should be skeptical. I want skeptical Americans. Right? Because when the guys come out here, idealistic, utopian, hey, we live on planet Earth. And planet Earth, there's no utopia. All we can do is get the best trade-offs for what we're looking for. That's it. But yeah, I digress. Let's continue.
Story of someone who was released
I'm
prior
giving
to
you an
that.
example of a specific show we've actually talked about someone wrongly held and had their life destroyed.
Okay.
Now, of course, we can go on further and say yes, people have died. Yes,
They
the
have.
system is corrupt. And my point is this: when we talk about stuff like this, like, wow, in October, we talked about 25 people being pushed in front of train cars. You guys just shit all over us and ignore these problems.
Exactly.
Then finally, when three guys...
ignoring this. I told you, no one's on the other side of this.
No,
no one is.
He didn't even know it. You didn't even know it, bro.
Where's your protest?
Yeah, where's your protest?
Yeah, where's your protest?
Where's your Rikers protest?
We had it on the show, but you don't watch
did a
the show.
protest? You did an actual protest. You guys stood up
we
and
Tim getting annoyed right now, dog.
walked to the
we
streets or
don't
what?
go on the streets ever,
But
right?
I'm not blaming you for not talking about that, Tim, because this is the problem of you are judging someone based on absence, based on your absence of caring about something. Why haven't you talked about this, Lance? The fact that you haven't talked about this means that you don't care about that.
That's not what I said.
Not true, though.
That's not what
but
I said.
That's the implication of what you were saying right now.
My implication is, instead of helping us deal with this when we talk about it, you make up garbage about us and then post nonsense on the internet.
What have I brought up garbage about people pushing people to?
And what Tim's talking about is how the left will create an imagination or a straw man, right? A straw man of what someone's position is, attack that and act like that's the person's actual position. And then when the person comes back and clarifies, it ends up being this debate, and then they try to mask it as, oh, political rhetoric. Like, come on. He didn't ask for any clarification from Tim. He imagined what Tim's position was. Tim's like, that's not my position. And he's asking to clarify. And then you end up debating he said, she said type of stuff. And this is how it seems like a discussion could go on for hours without actually arriving to any kind of conclusion, because there's always a misunderstanding about what was said or what was the meaning of certain statements. It's crazy. You end up fighting about definitions by the end of the conversation. That's what I tend to observe.
Trains. This is the most
I'm
random
not
example.
talking about you saying, I'm saying you don't talk about it, right? I'm not criticizing you for not talking about it. I'm saying finally, when there are people who are like, we've had 25 people pushed in front of trains, we've had 2 of them killed, I'm not going to let this person hurt somebody, it's y'all saying that person should go to prison. It's like, how is that solving the problem? You guys are making it worse. Your protests, your support for the criminals make this worse.
So our solution to this, if you're asking, when you're saying you mean the left, right? Our solution to a lot of this is that
You're speaking in support of the criminal, so I'm saying you.
Okay, so I am saying that the solution to a lot of this would be investing very heavily in things like healthcare, like getting and making sure that people have access to it, and not cutting the restrictions, like allowing people to have access to healthcare, not as a requirement based on how much money they have, based on their income.
I don't think healthcare, that's not how healthcare works in my view, right? And here's one of the topics I kind of wanted to get into is that I think in the American system right now, we have too much regulation in healthcare, right? One of the things is healthcare is tied to an employer. I think that's one thing that should be deregulated, right? I think healthcare should operate more like car insurance in a way, right? You know how we pay for car insurance, and in your car insurance, they don't cover you doing your weekly maintenance, not your weekly, sorry, your quarterly maintenance on your car. Your car insurance don't cover you changing your tires and all that stuff. And I say, hey, healthcare can operate in a similar way. Now, it's not free healthcare, but it's cheaper healthcare, because what I'm introducing with this concept, competition. They'll be fighting, and then obviously the healthiest, the fittest people will get the best rates because they're less likely to use the insurance, right? Because I forgot and I don't have quite the memory off the top of my head, but if I remember correctly, big like hospital expenses, like let's say you get into a car accident, let's say you need heart surgery, or like dramatic, like very critical medical conditions, they happen so rarely that insurance companies can give you a good rate to cover those instances of those things happening. But the current system where we're at right now, they got to cover checkups, which is way more frequent than you going to the hospital for something life-threatening or serious. That's what's adding into the huge cost of our healthcare system, right? And even with Canada, I think this guy's from Canada. Even with Canada, with their free healthcare, the wait time, and it's efficiency, right? The more expensive, hey, you get quick turnaround time. Like you get to see the doctor immediately, right? Canada, if I remember correctly, they have privatized insurance, and the wealthy people still get privatized insurance because the free one is the cost from taxpayers' perspective is way more expensive, and the quality of it is low. For like, you break your leg, you probably have to wait 2 months before a doctor actually can see you. And there's a priority list, because in the day, like I always say, if you don't pay for it, you don't have no authority over it, right? If you're not responsible for it, you don't have any authority over it. So if the government is responsible for your healthcare, the government can then create conditions like, hey, you're elderly, you're low priority because we want to take care of the young where they have a better likelihood of actually recovering from their illness compared to the old, right? And you can't really say nothing because at the end of the day, it's free. It costs you nothing, but the government, it still costs the government something. Someone still has to foot the bill. And no matter how much you may disagree with how I view Canada or free healthcare, there's a reason, in my view, there's a reason why the wealthy Canadians, when they have a serious health condition, they travel to America. That's empirical evidence. You have to recognize they do that. So if free healthcare was so great, why is the people who live in a country where there's free healthcare access still come to the States for healthcare to get treated? Because the wait time is not as efficient. It's not as high quality as America's. Now, America's can get better. I agree. America's can get better, but the solutions that he's thinking and the solutions that other people thinking can be quite different. Yeah, yes, nothing is free in this world, but it means what you're really doing is you're moving the burden from someone else to you. Either you carry that burden or someone else carry that burden, right? That's free healthcare. If you carry the burden, okay, you get better quality insurance because you're the one paying for it and you're the one consuming it. So you would expect, hey, I'm paying a lot of money for this healthcare. I better be seeing the doctor in less than an hour. But if we take the Canadian system, you're not paying for it. Oh, the doctor will see you in 2 months. You can't say nothing. You're not paying for it. 2 months? Is there nothing? The doctor don't have to give you quality customer service because the doctor know you ain't paying for it. But the people with private health care, oh, yeah, they get seen immediately. They go to private practice. And even in Sweden, and Sweden is the best example of what I'm talking about. In Sweden, to make their healthcare system more effective, they're starting to privatize certain aspects of their healthcare system to make it more efficient. And that's the problem with government intervention. Whenever, as a free market capitalist, I'm biased, but I believe America hasn't tried it yet. A free capitalistic healthcare system, privatized healthcare system. To me, it'll be more efficient. Imagine Amazon, a healthcare version of Amazon in the healthcare field. Bruh, we'll have cheap healthcare, decent healthcare, good healthcare. It may not be free, but at least it's cheaper than what we're dealing with today. But the left don't want that. The left want it their way. They want their vision to be enacted, not anything else, even though it solves the same problem. And that's the real contention that we're having. But hey, I digress. I just want to point that out there because there's a different perspective on this. There's not, because the left like to frame things as there's only one way to do, or there's only one way to solve an issue. When realistically, there's many ways of solving an issue. It's just what do we prioritize and who can make the better arguments. I still need to do more research on the healthcare thing, but if my memory serves me correctly, Sweden is trying to privatize their healthcare system to make it more efficient. That was the justification. So that gives me a clue telling me that, hey, free healthcare ain't all it's cracked up to be. There's a trade-off there, and that's what the left don't want to admit. The left want to act like, oh, this is a perfect solution. There's no way you can criticize this. If you criticize our solution for healthcare, it means you're just for the private corporations. No, I just think the private corporations can do it better than the government can. Because I have a bias against the government. Anything the government gets involved in, it becomes less efficient, right? Compare U.S. Postal Service versus FedEx. Who you rather deliver your stuff? FedEx. Better customer service. If something happens, they're reachable. The government runs the U.S. Postal Service. There's case studies of packages arriving takes too long to arrive, getting lost. No, you're hard to reach people. The website's always down. Who knows? But I can make a bet that FedEx is more efficient at giving you the service that you're looking for compared to the U.S. Postal Service, and that I'm extrapolating that across anything that the government gets involved versus the private sector. Hell, even school. Private school do better than public school. Why? Because the private school know, hey, if we do a bad job, our customers are going to leave, aka the parents are going to take their kids out of the school. Public school, they don't have to worry about that. They got guaranteed money because they get funded by the property tax of the state and the area. Who's more incentivized to actually give you quality? The private school, not the public school. The public school, we chilling. We got guaranteed jobs, and no matter if the kids is a F school, B school, whatever. This is why they're so against school choice, because they don't want to compete. They don't want to raise their game. They just want to sit there, get a guaranteed job, and cruise. This is why a lot of teachers in the teacher unions are against school choice. I know I kind of rambled there, kind of got off topic because we're talking about healthcare. Let's get back to this Lance guy.
But allowing them to get the care they need, that would have gone a long way to preventing a problem like this and future problems that are going to happen. I have no idea what's going on with the 25 people who've been pushed in front of trains. If it happens to be because people have mental illness, this is a tangible solution that we could work towards. This is something that are you against that idea about investing heavily into mental health care, public health care? Well, then there you go.
So
That's a much better line.
So here's
right?
my issue. My issue is when this story came out in October, we talked about it. And we said, why is this happening? What are the solutions? What are the problems? When this story comes out now, you, completely ignorant of what's been going on in New York, side with the criminal. And so people like me are flabbergasted that we've been focused on the issue of crime, the issue of mental health, the entire time going back several years. And this is why I left in New York, because two cops got murdered outside of my apartment. And then what do we hear? Protesters in the street defending the criminals.
You keep saying criminal. I have a problem with criminalizing people who are homeless or people who are poor or people.
Okay, and see, this is the narrative thing, the narrative game that I'm talking about. I'm judging someone based on their actions. Hey, you did a criminal offense, right? You were threatening in public, right? That's assault. In New York, it's verbal assault. Apparently, you speaking wrong to a certain person, they take it as verbal assault. That's an offense. He's doing criminal activity. Now, it doesn't mean that we dehumanize a person, but it means we hold the person accountable for breaking law and order. I don't understand like this character. It's like you just trying to appeal to emotion. Oh, I'm just trying to look like I'm morally more righteous than the other person. Oh, I don't feel like it's good to criminalize the homeless. He's a criminal that happens to be homeless. That's how I see it. He's not a criminal because he's homeless. There's a difference. And this guy is just, I think this guy, I think I get his little tactic. It seems like he's just trying to reframe everything. Everything Tim says, reframe it in a way where I could try to make myself look good. From an emotional, moral, optics standpoint. Because I think that's all the left really care about. They love optics. They don't care necessarily about being right or trying to find the truth. They care about looking the best. Oh, do I look better than this person? Like, does my argument seem more, what do you say it? Good, better? I don't know how to frame it. Not righteous. It's not righteous because righteous means it has to be true, right? And effective in my view. But hey, I digress.
Who are mentally ill. And then suddenly,
I'm not saying he's a criminal for being poor. I'm saying he's a criminal because he threatened people with harm.
Exactly.
Like incitement to violence is a crime, just like AOC says, right?
I really want to see the start of this video footage. I want to see the moment where he was threatening the very people who tried to take him down.
Look, either you accept that the witnesses, the media, and the police say this is what happened, or we can agree. No one has any idea, so there's no point in even talking about it.
Yeah, it's not a valid point. Like, all you're just saying is, hey, I don't trust the witnesses. I don't trust the eyewitnesses. That's all you're really saying. But that's not a valid argument because then I could just be like, oh, that's just your subjective view. But the evidence is you're just one person and you weren't in there. All these people said this was the case. I'll trust their word more than I'll trust your judgment on the situation. Done. You lose the argument. But he's trying to make it seem like he has a point or he has a valid statement to say. And I just think he's just wasting air in my view.
About it.
I think the interesting maybe confluence is that you were mentioning preventative measures are a way to go about it. What do you think about defensive measures? Like people should be armed and ready for this kind of thing regardless of the
gun control.
I mean, when it comes to defensive measures and people should be armed, I'm going to probably be on the exact opposite as the rest of you because you're probably very pro-gun here, right?
Oh,
I'm just making, we don't have the same problems in Canada that you do in the United States.
And I like how he reframed it. Oh, we don't have the same problems as you. Yo, you have problems still. Canada's not a perfect country, bro. But I digress. Let's him finish his statement.
States for mass shootings, for mass gun violence, for that kind of stuff.
You have 30 million people, don't you? Is it 30 million?
Okay, so by ratio of the population, Tim. So if you compare ratio of the population, Canadians to America, we don't have mass shootings like you do. No one else does. It's a uniquely American problem. The mass shooting thing is a uniquely American thing.
Obesity is pretty heavy here.
Well, I don't think it's fair to say uniquely American because there are mass shootings in many other countries.
Oh, there is, but it's a uniquely American problem that it's disproportionately happening here.
Well, mass killings aren't a uniquely American problem, but mass killings done with the use of firearms is much more uniquely American. I don't think anyone's going to debate that countries that have fewer firearms.
And with the gun control argument my thing is people kill people, right? End of the day, I think gun control, the whole premise of gun control is the left doesn't like the fact that the murder was done by a gun. If you ask the left, well, would you rather murder be done by a knife or a gun? The left will answer you, murder. I'd rather have murder be done by a knife than a gun, because the end of the day, a gun is a tool. A gun doesn't have a will of its own. So saying gun deaths or gun violence, bro, the gun is an inanimate object. You have to judge the person that pulls the trigger, because they the ones that made the decision to shoot the weapon. Because at the end of the day, the gun's a weapon. Anything based on the intentions, a human can make anything a weapon. So the person doesn't kill himself with a gun. Okay, he starts with a knife now. Now is knife violence going to become a thing now? You ban the knife. He going to use cars now. Oh, mass drive-bys. Man running over people with cars. Now we're going to ban cars now? Like, are we going to address the core issue of the problem? Hey, why are people killing other people so much? Are we going to address the root of the problem, or are we just going to treat the symptoms? Oh, we don't like the fact they're using a gun to do it. And that's all gun control seems to happen at. And anyway, gun, the ability to defend yourself is a constitutional right here in America. So to try to compare Canada and America is like, no, I'd rather get the trade-offs here than over there in Canada. The UK has similar gun control laws, I believe, compared to with Canada, and they deal with they have a higher rate of crime compared to America. Mass stabbings. Now over there in UK, there's some people that's calling for to ban knives, bruh. Knife control now over there in the UK. Mass stabbings, mass muggings, people you getting robbed. You can't walk around with a nice watch in London. Certain, like, America don't have that problem for the most part. In the metropolitan urban areas, we don't have that problem in broad daylight. But in UK, shoot, you can't take that chance in broad daylight, evening, especially at night. You can't do it, because end of the day, there's a book I read, less guns. Wait, it was more guns, less crime, and this researcher found that statistically, areas that have higher rates of gun ownership experiences less crime. And I think it's because guns are an effective deterrent for crime. If a woman has a gun, it'll deter the criminal the same way if a man has a gun. They call the gun the great equalizer for a reason. And that's a trade-off that conservatives and many people who are pro-gun will make. Yes, it could be used for bad, but what if I don't have one? If a mass shooting happens, how you stop a mass shooter with another gun? You need a gun. A man with a gun will stop the mass shooter. The mass shooter never just stops shooting. Someone has to come in and stop him by force with force, equal and opposite. To stop a bad guy with a gun, you need a good guy with a gun. But that's what Canada doesn't understand. And unlike Canada, I don't think they have an immigration problem. I don't think they have 90,000 immigrants per day coming into their country. Because if they ban guns, let's say they were able to ban guns in the United States. You don't think the cartels will go from the drug cartels to becoming gun cartels? And you don't think criminals are not going to have guns? You're going to give criminals an uneven playing field. The criminals are going to know, hey, I know law-abiding citizens don't own guns. And if they do own guns, it's illegal and they can go to jail for having a gun. And there's more guns than people in the United States. So how are you going to confiscate all these guns? You don't think people are going to try to hide their guns? Guns are going to become as valuable as gold if you ban guns. For some reason, and this is where another inconsistency I noticed with the left. The left will talk about how if you make weed illegal, you just helping funding the black market. Why don't take that same position when it comes to gun control, gun bans? If you ban guns, you're just gonna make a gun black market. Just like people still get their hands on weed, even though weed is illegal in some states. They're decriminalizing in other things, but end of the day, weed was always accessible. The U.S. did the same thing for alcohol. That's how the mafia got so rich. You don't think that's gonna happen with guns?
Bruh.
I'm just saying. This is what I think the left don't think too far ahead. But they don't want to hear arguments like this. They'll try to dismiss the argument. Oh, that's not relevant. That's not going to happen. That's their favorite go-to line. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. And then when it happens, they look at you like, oh, you're right. Now we got even more of a problem. Now we got even more criminals. Look at Chicago. Chicago is a perfect example. What will happen to America all around the world if we ban guns? The criminals are going to know, oh, law-abiding citizens are sitting ducks. And anyway,
statistically, you have to wait. On average, the fastest time a cop can get to your house is 5 minutes. So if you get caught up in a dispute or you getting attacked by a criminal, you gotta wait 5 minutes. Well, if you had a gun, you could address the criminal immediately, and you probably save yourself from becoming a victim. But no, it seems like the left don't want people to have the tools to be victors. It seems like the left just want everyone to be victims. I digress. Let's get back into the video.
You're going to have fewer people killing each other with firearms. It then becomes a moral
Australia
question
has
of whether
more
it's
per capita than the United States. Is that
more
right?
per capita.
That is not true. No
I just
country
looked
comes
up
close to the United States.
List
Death
of
rates.
countries by no. Okay, I'm sorry. That was a mistake.
Sorry,
El
Australia.
Salvador,
And
Venezuela.
when you're correct,
Yeah. So,
so when
is
you're
it all right if I
correcting
just finish my thought?
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I'll
So,
answer
so my basic point.
Yeah, that was
is,
way off. The United States is not the most. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th.
El Salvador.
And so of all the other countries in that list, which of them are considered part of the G20? You have to compare countries that have similar economic systems, similar economic societal structures. The United States places number 1 when you compare them to any other G20 country.
Yeah, no, so
Yeah.
it's true that as far as developed nations go, the
Yes.
United States does have a much higher rate of gun violence. I don't deny that. My argument
More
is
guns.
simply that other nations do have higher rates. Depending on the nation that you're looking at, there's still a pretty decently high homicide rate in a lot of developed countries, and there are a lot of mass killings. In the United States, those mass killings are generally carried out with firearms, but according to CDC studies, firearms are used to prevent more violent crimes each year than they're used to commit. So it's
That's what I was just talking about. Defensive gun use. Most guns in this country are used in self-defense. Then they're used for enacting violence on other individuals or on other people's self. Majority of gun deaths are suicide. Second is homicide, right? Those numbers combined, I don't even think the self-defense cases still outweigh guns being used for homicide and death. But the left wants to ban all of it. Why? They want to ban semi-armed, what do they call it? AK-47s. They want to ban semi-automatic guns without realizing that handguns are responsible for the majority share of gun deaths. It's just all it is hey, we want to justify taking away the gun. We see the machine gun mass shooting. This is why whenever a mass shooting happens, it's all over national news. But when there's a good guy who stopped the other person with a gun, it's never all around the news. Because they don't want to put out a counter narrative that, guns are used for self-defense as much as they're used for criminals use them to engage in criminal activity and taking other people's lives. When majority of gun owners are using guns for defensive use only, there's no way you can justify that. You making the majority suffer for the actions of a minority. I'm just saying. I mean, 500,000 cases of guns used in a defensive use of guns. 500,000 cases. How many cases of homicide? Maybe in the 30,000s, 40,000s, maybe. I'm just saying. But for those 40,000, it's too much. It's too much. We must ban all guns. To me, it seems like America is using guns more responsibly than they are actually using it irresponsibly. But just because it happened in a small amount of case, it's too much for you, and now you have to ban all the guns. It's not a tenable position in my view, but hey, I digress.
more complex argument than simply saying the U.S. has more firearm deaths, therefore restricting firearm ownership would prevent those.
Let me ask you too. Do you know what country has the most grenade attacks?
I only know the answer because I saw you typing it. I think it's Sweden, right?
I actually didn't type that in. I searched for.
By the way,
I would
decently
have no
high
idea.
murder rate was a very clumsy.
I don't want to cheat, but I saw you typing it. But yeah,
I didn't type in Sweden. I typed in most grenade attacks by country, and Sweden is the only thing that comes up. Wow. And yeah, Sweden has more grenade attacks than any other country, but grenades are illegal there.
My point exactly. You can make something illegal, but it doesn't prevent the problem that you're supposedly trying to address. Oh, we're gonna stop mass shootings? No, gun control. Sorry, I'm stuttering now. All gun control does is limit law-abiding citizens' ability to defend themselves. That's it. Especially when most guns in the country are used for self-defense or defensive use only. That means a majority of gun owners use the gun responsibly as intended to defend themselves or to defend others. But for that, the left want to ban all guns, leaving these people who are using the gun responsibly in a self-defensive manner helpless. And that's the only result that gun control would bring about. that people will stop using guns to kill themselves or kill themselves and kill other people. They'll change to something else. It could be by knife. It could be by car. Hammers, maybe. Who knows? Because at the end of the day, the people behind the tool is what causes the tool to do something bad or wrong. The gun don't have a mind of its own. People kill people, and that's the core root of the problem. This is why a lot of conservatives say, hey, these mass shootings is a mental health issue. It's a societal issue. It's a cultural issue. We're creating these, we're castrating our men. We're telling men that they can't be anything. They're not wanted in society, right? They're ostracized, socially awkward. They can't relate to anybody because usually these are the archetypes of a school shooter. Loners, socially awkward, socially disconnected from their peers, and then raised by single moms. All of them actually. Every school shooter was raised by a single mom, or they were raised by like a grandparent or something. Biggest argument against single motherhood right there. Okay, if we're using correlation, all these were white males. Why you don't say, all these came from single motherhood? So now we're gonna say, single mothers are not allowed to raise sons because they create mass shooters. No one's gonna be saying that. No one's saying that.
Nope.
So all of a sudden, why we have to ban the gun when it's the person behind the gun that's doing that? Why not put preventative measures? Why not put armed security in public schools? I think you can get conservatives to agree to raise some taxes or reroute some funds from the state tax budget into providing security for public schools, because public schools are the majority target for mass shootings. Gun-free zones are the biggest targets for mass shootings because the shooter know, hey, no one else will have a gun to defend themselves. This is why they target gun-free zones. Gun-free zones, the result is you make that area a target for mass shootings. That's the reality. If a school shooter had to pick between two targets, a school that has a armed security guard with a gun, or a school that's a gun-free zone, where you think it will go? Common sense, we all know the answer. Common sense will tell us they'll go for the gun-free zone because they're not looking for someone that has the capabilities to fight back against them. But I digress, man. I mean, people can feel entitled to what they want, but they gotta counter out this reality that I'm bringing, because this is reality. Criminals don't get their guns legally, so gun control won't affect them. They'll find a way to still get their guns illegally, just like they got drugs illegally. Come on, you're just gonna give the criminals an upper hand. But hey, I'm done railing against gun control now.
Okay.
I've got a feeling
Why are there grenade attacks?
Okay,
in
so
Sweden?
I would love to answer this question. So if we're going back to guns and the U.S. versus Canada, when I said that there's a G20, if we look at all the G20 countries, the United States disproportionately by ratio of the population.
And Purple Honey, yeah, I understand. Like, we're not trying to excuse it, but we have to address how they come about, right? And one of the interesting things I remember, like going through like history, is we had a lot looser gun laws in, like, let's say the 1930s, and there was no mass shootings in the 1930s. Kids were holding guns, like hunting rifles, all that in the 1930s. No mass shootings. It's until, I forgot when the first mass shooting happened. It was with a handgun, killed 33 people at some university. I forgot the timeline. But it was like more in recent history, like 1990s, 2000s, early 2000s is when mass shooting became a thing. So this, if you're looking at it from American history, this mass shootings are a fairly recent thing compared to stuff in the past. So they can't just keep blaming the gun. It's our culture. Our culture are producing mass shooters, and we need to figure out what are the factors that we're creating that's creating mass shooters. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all I'm gonna say.
Population has way more gun deaths, way more gun violence, and a lot of that gun violence, by the way, is people killing themselves. Just so we're completely clear.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in the framework of Canada has a very different set of rules for firearms than the United States does. You can still have a firearm in Canada. You just have to take a 2-day course and you get a license, and then you get gun training, and then you have the ability to buy guns. And that way, everyone has a license. They know how to use firearms properly. They're not just going to be running around the streets, pointing them, and then all that kind of.
But man, that's not a thing in America. That doesn't happen in America because we're responsible people. Like I said, majority of gun use is used in a defensive manner. Right. And the deaths they're complaining about is criminal activity and people committing suicide. So the people who commit suicide will do all that training you just talked about and still kill themselves. criminals, we already said, most criminals don't get their guns legally. They get it illegally. So even that process, they circumvent that. Either they rob somebody that got the gun legally and use it for malicious means. Like, there's different ways around it. I don't think more arbitrary filters and more arbitrary processes will necessarily give them the outcome they're looking for. I just think it's a way to just, I don't know, add more regulation, more control, eventually leading you up to banning guns. Because you're gonna do one new rule. Oh, we're gonna raise the age to 25. Then all the school shooters are 25 years old. Then you're gonna be like, hey, look, we tried all these measures. So then you can justify banning the gun outright. Because you can be like, look, we tried all this, it still didn't work. We gotta ban the gun. That's what that's what the left's trying to lead people into. And the conservatives like, yo, we already see where you're going with this. It's not the gun. We got to address the cultural issues that's producing these mass shooters and try to create a culture or try to find preventative measures to prevent this. And the most immediate solution to address mass shooters right now is to create like some security budget and put armed guards at public schools. It may not stop school shooting, but it'll deter school shooters. And that's what the conservative argument for against gun control will be to address this issue of mass shooters. That's a quick solution. The long-term solution is to figure out what's in our culture that's shifted, that's causing these boys to commit these acts of violence against their fellow schoolmates. But I digress. Let's finish the video.
Shit. And you can also control for that.
But that's not what's happening.
I agree, Purple Honey. I think we don't have a shared moral culture anymore, right? Everyone's, and I think this is one of the core reasons why gun control is so prominent against the left, is because the left don't trust conservatives or other people with guns, right? And that's because we no longer have a shared culture, right? If you look at countries that have the lowest rate of crime, they tend to be the least diverse cultures in the world. China comes to example. Japan comes into example. Finland, Sweden, Denmark, 95% one ethnic culture, one ethnic group, experience low rates of crime. And that's because we don't have a shared identity anymore, right? And I think that's the biggest driver of why we're doing all this stuff. Like, crime is so high for us. That's all I'm trying to say. I mean, people can disagree, but I think there's something to that. If when you look at Finland, Finland's so safe. Sweden's so safe. Japan's so safe. Japan, kids can walk in the sidewalk at 3 years old, 2 years old. Nothing gonna happen to them. So, hey, I digress.
In the United States, like people just running around randomly, like.
No, I'm not saying that it is. But I'm saying that that is in my opinion, that is a better system. I'm not trying to take your guns away. Hell no. I think guns are fun. We all love shooting guns. I like having a second penis. I'm just saying that, like, at the end of the day, if you look at how it works with Canada, this could be applied to the United States federally. You could have a federal program where you have to have a 2-day gun training program. You tax the gun producers and the weapons manufacturers, and then you get them to pay for it so poor people could afford this program.
Right, but you can't do that. Because gun
I don't understand the concept of trying to make everything affordable for people. Either they can afford it or not. Let the people work to require those things. And if they can't require those things, we can address that issue. But to me, I don't know. I don't this concept of trying to make everything so accessible. If you don't have the money to afford a gun, hey, you don't have the money to afford a gun. Get a skill that could generate more income to get it, or be financially responsible and save until you have enough to get the stuff. It's like people can't work for stuff anymore. It's like, oh, the government has to make it as accessible and as easy to get as possible. I never understand that, especially if it's not considered a necessity. But hey, I digress, man. This is something I observed him talking.
Ownership is a constitutional right. Or I should say, gun ownership is a human right, guaranteed, protected against government infringement.
I'm all about training in schools. I think the public schools should have gun training for kids.
Like they used to.
Yeah, like they used to. Yeah. So we got one more clip. Oh, 25 minutes. I don't know if I got 25 minutes in me, but we're going to try to get into this as much as we can.
Suicidal ideation and aggressive thoughts and things like that.
So this is about suicide ideation. So this is about, I think this is when they're talking about, I don't know what this clip's about actually, but I think they go into abortion in this one, and it's going to be an interesting conversation. And Tim hits him with the left is a cult, and you're going to see how this guy responds.
But I do want to answer your question. You said, why isn't that the subject of like the show today?
Yeah, or the premise or the framing of it.
Because when we do talk about this stuff on like a normal day, when news breaks of like 25 people pushed in front of trains, or a woman was raped on a train in Philadelphia, and we're sitting here saying like, what is going on in these cities? What are the failed policies that are resulting in this? We talk about it all the time. Today, we're talking about the fact that protesters went out in New York and physically assaulted one of our friends and reporter because he simply filmed them, and they are demanding criminal charges of the guy who tried to stop the violent offense. See, that is anarcho-tyranny. That when you have ongoing crime, when you have victimization, people being killed, and a woman being raped on a train, we talk for a year, 2 years, 3 years. When the riots happened in 2020, we had Michael Tracy's reporting showing all of the riots across the country and the mom and pop shops that were putting up signs saying, please don't hurt us. We talk about it nonstop. And then one day, someone on a train, 3 guys, say, we must stop this man. Maybe because they were like, we've seen too many people die on these train tracks before. And now we've got leftist protesters saying that guy should go to prison.
It's like unequally applied accountability. Like, come on. A protester can assault a reporter just because he's reporting. No consequences. No accountability for the protesters. Marine stops dude from hurting other people. Marine got to go to jail because he's the wrong color and he did it to the wrong ethnic group because that ethnic group happened to be a black person. And this is why I say identity politics is a divisive concept. Like, it divides people. It creates tribalistic politics. Oh, you're a white man. You can't do that to no black man. Because at the end of the day, no matter whether the white man was justified or not, he hurt a black man, and all the black people are supposed to be mad about that and calling for the Marine to go to jail. And this is the kind of categorization that the left seems to want to happen in America, so that there's no unity in America. So we don't all agree on the same rules and be like, hey, everyone has to abide by the same rules. If you break these rules, everyone's held accountable. They don't want that. They want, there's a black standard, there's a white standard, and everyone got to abide by their certain standards. Oh, you're a black man, you're supposed to vote Democrat. Like, bruh, come on.
Bruh.
I thought referencing someone's race was racist. I thought we were trying to unite under, oh, we're all Americans. No, that's not the left's vision. They think, oh no, you're a black man, you have a certain position. This is our expectations. Meet up to that stereotype. And I think this is my biggest problem with critical race theory, because they conflate culture with race. Big issue here. They think, being good at math, that's a white thing. Speaking proper English is a white thing. No, it's an American thing. America's an English-speaking country. So if I'm an American, I have to learn how to speak what? English. It's not tied to a race. But in identity politics, in critical race theory, they reference how you talk, how your tonality is, how your vernacular is, and say, oh no, you're talking white. Oh no, this is how black people are supposed to talk. Ineligible, only able to talk with other black people, can't talk properly with other groups of people from other races. You limit your opportunities that way, not being able to speak proper English. I'm just saying, like, you can't get a high paying job speaking in slang, because most people in that high paying job won't be able to understand what you're trying to communicate. And communication is important in corporate America. But enough about my economic reasons for why talking proper English is advantageous to immigrants or many people in this country. Let's continue with the video.
For it. And AOC calling it a public murder. I'm like, yo, AOC, I didn't see you call out the public murder in the subway trains. And again, maybe it's ignorance. But the problem I see is, this is why I refer to the left as NPCs.
Oh, here we go.
There is complete ignorance to the problem ongoing, and then a hyperpolarization in a single moment in the wrong direction, which makes the problem worse.
Yep,
You know what's
reactive.
so wild is the other side feels the exact same
That's what
way.
I'm talking
In
Except
the other
we're not
direction.
conservatives.
In the opposite direction.
Except
yeah.
we're not conservatives.
In the exact same.
You see, that's the problem.
Okay, so
Is
Tim,
it already?
Tim getting riled up.
I jump in with something, right? Because I've been
He's
reluctant.
a conservative. He's a moon lord, and I'm a
Lame-ass.
traditionalist.
I've been reluctant to interject because I don't want to just dogpile. And so I didn't want to get in on it.
Oh no,
A
I'm,
huge
here,
part of
I'm
that
here
argument,
for the dog
but
pile. I signed
you're
up.
not, I promise.
I'm sitting
I
in
promise
Yates'
you're
chair,
not.
right?
I
This is where
promise
Yates
you're
sat
not.
and Yates said, no, I'm here for the dog pile. Let's do
So
this.
I think when you talk about mental health and trying to solve the problem of mental health in this country, that is a deceptively simple way of putting it, right? Every single person in this room would have a very different idea of how that problem should be solved.
Yes, we can all agree there's a problem that exists, but we all have different solutions or different approaches to how we want that problem to be resolved, and that's what we're gonna disagree on, right? And just because I don't agree with your approach doesn't make me evil, doesn't make me uncaring. I just think, hey, I think my solution is the better solution. Here's why. There's trade-offs. Or at the end of the day, there's no perfect solution, but the left want to try to pretend like they have the perfect solution, right? And that's because the left believe in this concept of we can get a utopia society. And in my view, you can't. That's not realistic. That's not objectively true. Life, as I grew up and my profession has made that clear to me, life is about trade-offs. And depending on what the goal is, what you want, is it efficiency? If you want government control, you'll pick what the left want. If you want the state to be in control of everything, you don't want to pay for nothing. Hey, let the state get it. But don't expect an efficient system. If you value efficiency, hey, the private sector, they seem to be more efficient about things. But you're going to be responsible for a lot of the services and products that you want because you have to directly pay for it in an individual level. But free competition has shown stuff will get cheaper. The phones used to be the most expensive item known to man when it first came out. Now it's so cheap that even the poorest American can have an iPhone 14, the latest and greatest tech, because that's how cheap that capitalism has made the material. You don't think that same process can work with healthcare? I'm just saying. School, it may not be free, but it will be cheaper, more efficient. For the amount of money you paying, you're gonna get a lot more for it. You're gonna get a lot more bang for your buck than when the government is providing the service to you. It's free, but it's crap. But yeah, I digress.
And I agree with you that right now Republicans aren't doing a whole lot to talk about mental health issues, at least with respect to whatever mental health issue that this specific person is dealing with.
Wait.
But
New
that's
York,
because
New York is not a Republican place.
No. I totally agree with that too. But he was saying, why don't Republicans do more to advocate for mental health treatment? My point, however, is that I think the kind of advocacy you'd see from conservatives on how to solve the problem of bad mental health in the United States
is a cultural one. We think it's a moral one. We also think is because we don't have a shared culture, right? We don't have the same, like, because in school you want your kids to be instilled with certain values, right? And you want kind of like a nationalist education, right? When you go to Sweden, you want the kids to be proud to be Sweden, right? And in that shared, like, you want to create some type of common ground, some common sense of unity, and there has to be a unifying principle that links all the people together. And usually that's nationality. Hey, you're born in this country, you're American, you should be physically invested in the ship that you're in, because if American go down, you're gonna have to find a different ship, and no one wants that problem. So you that's why they say ask not what the country can do for you, but what you can do for your country, because it gives a sense of a goal, right? It used to be religion, it used to be a moral sense, but they took all that out of school. So that's one piece of American culture gone. Now everyone treats America like it's an economic zone, like it's a glorified economic zone. Oh, you just come here and you just get materially wealthy, but there's no culture here. And this is how you get the sense. And this is how we got America to where it is right now. And all I'm saying is, hey, America has to instill values into its people, into their citizenry. And this is what the left has done. Instead of endowing our kids with to being proud of being American, they tell their kids, don't be proud of being American. Look at all the bad that America has done. Doesn't balance it out with any of the good that America has done. Doesn't instill any sense of pride in the nation. Most Americans feel bad being Americans. And this is how we get to our situation right now. No one feel like they belong anywhere. Everyone feel like they're on their own. Everyone feels isolated. We have no sense of community anymore, because a big degree of human happiness is a social group, a community. We need that communal factor. We need a social life. This is why loners tend to be mass shooters. This is why, oh, sorry, I said that wrong. This is why mass shooters tend to be loners, because they're socially isolated, and you always hear it. Oh, he was awkward. He wasn't good with girls, or he was like, you see that they were not, they didn't have any ties or associations with the community at large, and they reacted violently against that. Oh, this country don't care about me. Oh, okay. And they go out and in their view, they're enacting revenge on society. And this is how we get these mass shooters and with their craziness. And I think that's what we're missing here. But I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point.
It would be a much different set of policy prescriptions than you would want. So one example of this, right?
Actually, what Ian said.
So what Ian said. And there's a number of different directions you could take this in. My fundamental belief is that
I agree. Cultural appropriation is a farce. I did a video on that one. I went ham on that one because a lot of things that we do here in this America, like American basketball, black people are culturally appropriating basketball. In the NBA, is almost 80% black, but a white man created basketball. Isn't that not cultural appropriation? I mean, this is what I'm talking about. They want to say we're a melting pot, and I agree. But if people try to cross-pollinate cultures, people, the left will come out here and slander you. Say, "Oh, you're culturally appropriating. You're being culturally insensitive. You're a white man, but you're wearing Mexican outfit. That's racist." No, they say the biggest form of flattery is imitation. If I wear a Japanese kimono or whatever, Japanese people are like, "Oh my God, you look so nice in it," because it's like, "Oh, you like our culture so much that you wear it stuff. You wear our stuff." And this is where we're going to, like, it's the left version of trying to find a way to victimize themselves or be outraged about something. And I think that's where cultural appropriation really is. So you don't want America to teach its values to its citizenry because, it's a simulation and the simulation is bad. You don't want immigrants assimilating to American culture. But then when the immigrants bring their culture and other immigrants, right, because we're a nation of immigrants, right, when other immigrants are like, when America's mixing and appropriating other cultures, that's bad too. Like, you can't win with these people, bro.
It doesn't make sense.
Like how you expect to create any unifying social fabric in our country? And you wonder why people don't trust each other. You wonder why we're so partisan. You wonder why why tribal politics is such a thing. Why we're so divided in this country. Because the left, from a cultural perspective, has antagonized America to the point where we view each other as enemies. This is why I kind of agree with Tim. I think the only way to peacefully resolve all these issues is to have a peacefully national divorce. But I'm not there, because at the end of the day, Tim's a centrist, so he's gonna be like, "Oh, let's not fight." But I think America is worth fighting for. So I was like, "Hey, like, let's try to unify under being proud of America." Yes, America did bad things, but what country didn't do? What nation doesn't have any bad things in their history? For some reason, it's okay to be proud to be Haitian, but then if I say I'm proud to be American, that's bad because America is bad. America's a colonizer. Yo, Haitian has some bad things in their history too. Like, it's crazy. It's like show me a perfect country. There is none. You can name all you have to do is pick the timeline. You could cherry pick any point in history for any nation, and you can make them look like the worst nation in the world. But for some reason, America, it's just all bad. What? Too black and white for me to accept that. There needs to be some nuance with that, and that's what conservatives are just fighting for. Hey, let's have a balanced perspective of history. There was good things America did, and there was bad things America did. But at the end of the day, we overcame that, and look where we are today. I think that's a more unifying message to preach to our kids, instead of teaching them that there's 52 genders and you can be a pony if you feel like you're a pony. Like, I don't think that's that's values we should be teaching our kids. I think we should be teaching our kids national identity, like being proud of being in America, the opportunities they have, the struggles. Like, come on. I don't know, man. I digress.
We live in a culture that encourages man to live in ways that man is not meant to live, and you just see negative health outcomes from that, both mental and physical. However, when you look at traditional psychological definitions of mental illness and how we used to treat it, back in the 1950s, you had about 500,000 people in the United States in insane asylums. By the 1980s, it's about 100,000. Okay, so without even adjusting for the increase in population size, there's a significantly lower number of people who are committed. And part of that is because the requirement to get somebody committed involuntarily to a mental health facility at that time was they can't take care of themselves. Today, they have to demonstrate that they are a danger to themselves and others first before they can be committed. Now, is someone not being able to take...
Imagine. It seemed like every time you lax the standards for things, you make things worse. Right? Now, that might be an extreme example. Oh, you can't take care of yourself? Mental health asylum. But the only way nowadays people go to an asylum is if they demonstrate that they're a harm to others, right? And I think that's too lax of a standard, right? I don't know, man. That's just me. You guys can have different thoughts. Let me know if you're watching this on a replay what your thoughts about this is. But I just think it seems like whenever you lower the bar, it's just bad outcomes are just destined to happen. It just seems like. But I digress.
Take care of themselves necessarily the perfect indicator of whether they need to be committed to one of these institutions? I have no idea. However, what I do know is once we push the goalpost all the way in the other direction and say they have to demonstrate that they are a significant danger to themselves or others, oftentimes they don't get committed until after they've already hurt somebody. So it's a much more complicated situation than saying we just have to throw more money at this system when we don't even have a solid definition of what good mental health is and also at which point someone should be committed.
So I think the important point, going back to what I agree, this is not a conservative show, but if you are in a cult, you wouldn't know that.
Damn, call them
You
out.
would only hear what the cult says.
So here's what I have to respond to that. If an objective person, say an alien, just showed up and
This guy's talking about objectivity, laughable. Look. Before Tim goes in on this guy, okay? He's trying to say, oh, if we're looking for an objective, statistically, the left is more likely to be in an echo chamber than people on the right.
Bruh.
I know. I'm speaking to the choir on this point, but it's true. So he's talking about, oh, if an alien would come down and see your content, Tim, they'll say you're conservative. That's probably what he's going to say. But if you're only around people that sees the world the same way you do, how do you know that what you said was an actually objective position? I'll wait.
Bruh.
I don't think he knows that. And this is what I'm talking about. The left will have this imagination or this view of you, argue that view of you without realizing, without knowing if that's really your position or not. They just think that's your position, right? They imagine what you are and they argue against that. Oh, I imagine Tim to be a right-wing, alt-right, gun-tooting, but he's pro-choice, right? He's pro-universal health care. Does that sound like an alt-right to you? No, he's alt-right. Because that's the version of what you've been given to. But hey, I digress. Jonathan Fields, good night. Hope you have a blessed weekend. I'll see you on the next stream. So I digress. Thank you for making videos and don't give up making these informative videos. I appreciate it. It can't be in an echo chamber. I'm like the only Christian conservative minded I know personally, so I have no choice but to listen. Yeah, and even in mainstream media, there's more liberal media than conservative media. So, yeah, I mean, I digress. But let's get into this point because it's going to get interesting, and I might call it a stream because I'm almost going for 2 hours.
looked at your channel, Tim, and went through all the videos, and you were to ask them, poll them, is this person and his views, where would you place them? Most likely they would say conservative. That's going to be
That's
my bet.
actually wrong.
Yes.
But more because the guests that come on
Not
tend
just
to
even
identify.
the guests, but the way they're framed, the thumbnails, the words that you put in red, and the whether or not you're supporting or going against one, either the Democrats or the Republicans. But hey, you tell me that you guys don't like the Democrats and you don't like the Republicans. This is not a Republican stream. You don't want to even endorse the Republicans in any way, shape, or form, or vote for them.
I don't-
Big
Well,
no.
I don't
There's
vote
a
on
handful of
party
Republicans
lines
we do like.
personally.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. Okay, sure. But there's a lot of right wingers who watch you, right?
Okay,
So you
but that doesn't mean the show is right wing. It's like
Bruh.
it's like saying, hey, a lot of right wingers like Nike, and that's saying Nike is right wing. No, and this is what I'm talking about. Instead of addressing the validity of the argument, like, hey, is Nike right wing? No, you don't want to shift through all the stances that they take. See, no, you go, oh, all your customers happen to be conservative. That means you have to be conservative because in their mind, they think, hey, I only watch people that I like. I only watch people that agree with me. I only buy things from businesses that agree with my worldview. Conservatives must do the same thing. No, they don't. Conservatives don't do that. Conservatives value the product. Hey, is this a good product or bad product? Do I need this product or not? We tend not to get political about these things. Now, recently we had to with Bud Light because they keep pushing a message that we don't agree with. And we felt like, yo, we keep complaining about this stuff in social media and these companies never listen. So let's just boycott. Let's hurt them where it hurts with the dollar. And that seems to be a more effective strategy to get these companies to listen to us when we say, hey, be apolitical. Hey, stop pushing this stuff down our throat. But yeah, I digress. Let's get into this. Let's wrap this up because it's getting a little long. I know it's a little late.
That's what I mean when I say you do have a voice and you do have an audience of right-wingers who are going to vote at one point or another. 30% of your audience is right-wing.
Most of the people who watch this, the largest faction is libertarian.
Okay.
The next largest would be considered traditional liberal. Oh, no, I think...
but along party lines, who are the libertarians going to vote for? Not the Libertarian Party. Most likely they're going to vote for whoever...
When they come on this show and say abolish the police.
One of the two, Republican or Libertarian.
Yeah, most likely,
usually.
yes, one of the two. So that's why I say, Tim, for the people who watch you who are Republican-leaning, why not frame it that way for them so that they can actually start pushing more money into that?
That's why I'm here.
That's
basically true, I think, in a lot of ways.
That's what Moonlord does.
So here's what I think. I think you're in a cult, right?
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I think the cult is derived from algorithms on social media.
Okay.
So you only surround yourself with this loud noise. We saw a really good example of this with that Sisson guy. Is that his name? Harry? I don't know.
Harry Sisson, yeah.
Sisson. Those two guys went on the Tim Dillon podcast, and he said, please, no, don't clip this. Okay. I will lose followers. I can rag on Trump all the time, and, people still watch the show.
Yeah.
Seamus and I can have an argument over me being pro-choice and him being pro-life, and people still watch the show. And if I pull up all sides with 3,770 ratings, Boom! Is a centrist. But you...
He owned this dude. It's crazy. So the guy set himself up. He made himself look like a left-wing extremist. Like, you think Tim is alt-right? He's in the center. That means you way progressive. You far left. And that's the argument that a lot of people who are moderates and lean left, lean right has been saying that, hey, the left has gone way out of there to the point where they think everyone's alt-right. Now they're starting to think Bill Maher's alt-right. Crazy, huh?
Bruh.
I mean, I wish I had that. Gotcha.
think I'm conservative because you live in a bubble, right?
Look at his
I'm
face.
too far left, the Overton window is too far away, is what you're saying?
Yep.
So like when I go hang out in Washington, D.C.,
Right.
and I go to National Harbor or I go to Baltimore, Maryland Life. I'm in Baltimore.
I don't know
of all
why
places.
you do that. Washington, D.C.?
The people who come up to me and are like, hey, man, I'm a big fan, are not conservatives. They hate Donald Trump. In fact, I was at a poker table last week, and a guy said, I just hate Donald Trump. Man.
Oh, boy. Let me see. Because it's getting long. I think. Oh, my God. Sorry about this. So, let me see.
Abortion is defined by Planned Parenthood and the law as terminating the life of the baby.
Correct.
Why terminate the life of the baby if it can survive on its own?
Because it could kill both of them. That's why it is done at...
Okay, so this is a misconception because 99% of abortions are elective, aka the baby is perfectly healthy if the mother chose not to abort the child. Only less than 1% of abortions are due to medical reasons. So that means there's less than a 1% chance that what he's saying is actually probable in reality, right? Because he's trying to frame abortion as life-saving care. Like, no, it's not. You're choosing death for the baby. That's pretty much what it is. And even if you think it's not a baby, it's a fetus. Fetus means offspring. So essentially you're saying you're killing your offspring. That's all you're saying to me. But yeah, I digress. Let's get into this. I kind of want to wrap this up, but it's interesting with the abortion argument that he kind of talks in circles. And in the video, if you watch the full video, he could not even define what an abortion was because he doesn't have no idea what an abortion is, like how the actual procedure is carried out, what an abortion actually means. And I think a lot of people on the left argue just to argue, right? They don't even actually know what abortion is, what abortion actually entails. If you told them, hey, how does an abortion procedure go? They just, and that's how he was arguing. Let me see if I can find that part of the
that
clip.
stage.
So
It
how
could
do you
kill
how do
one
you,
or the
how do you
other,
get
and
the
they have
baby
to
out?
make the tough decision
And
at
how
that
do you-
point.
So how do you remove the fully formed 9-month baby at that point?
Oh, I don't know the science of it. I've never performed that.
But he's arguing passionately for why he's pro-abortion. Oh, women should do it. Women should do it. But you don't know what that entails. You don't know that, there's different ways they chop up the baby into pieces inside the womb, then pull them out piece by piece. You don't know that. You don't know that part about the procedure, do you? And what Tim Pool was trying to make the argument in the video was that if a woman does a late term abortion and the baby's viable outside the womb, Tim says the baby should live, and the guy tried to frame Tim Pool as pro-birth. Oh, you're forcing women to give birth, and he's like, how I'm forcing women to give birth? Because in the day, whether you do an abortion, C-section, or natural birth, the baby's coming out of you. So you can't say all those things are pro-birth. Are you? Only one thing is really birth, and that's going through the birth canal. C-section, you could say as a procedure, just take the baby out. But Tim was saying, if the baby's viable, why take out the baby and then kill it? That makes no sense. And that's why he asked them about, oh, what do you think abortion is? And the guy's like, I don't know. But he's here arguing passionate about why Tim is pro-birth.
Bruh.
Hey, this is what people deal with.
Operation.
So
Report.
shouldn't the law then be, if the baby must be removed and it is alive and capable of survival, all actions must be taken to preserve the life of the child and the mother?
I would say they'd probably choose the mother first, right?
No.
Why?
And this is such a strange scenario. How often do you think that this happens and all of a sudden they're like, the baby could have lived. You could have done it. Why did you choose the other option? It's like, this is a tragedy of the highest order because they want to have the kid. At 9 months pregnant, a woman is on her way to give birth.
That happens less than 1% of the time.
So it's like, it's the worst possible fucking
I'm
thing that
sorry,
could happen to
but
her.
that's not always. Again, I said I didn't want to dogpile,
No,
but
no,
that's
good,
I mean, it's statistically not true. There have been surveys done on women who had later abortions, and for a pretty large sum of them, it's because they were not sure whether the father of the child was willing to commit, and then when they found out he wasn't willing to commit, they would have the abortion.
Hey,
Bruh.
this happens in blue states. And another thing I wanted to add on too is that some of the times for medical reasons, and Seamus put this out. I found this out through Seamus, and I'm trying to skip around because there's a part of the video that I really want to highlight before I close the stream off. I'm just trying to find it. And in the video, Seamus makes the argument that like some women, they put that I have depression and that's why I want the abortion, and it's considered a medical reason to have the abortion. So there's even that factor going into it as well. So it's a slippery slope out here. Like, to me, I would say, hey, if it's elective abortion, it shouldn't happen. But hey, that's just me. But to try to frame it's hilarious. Let me
Your
see.
argument then.
My argument is that there's a lot of
if
human
13,000
beings.
people die from guns, we have a problem, right?
If 13,000 people die from guns, we have a problem. Yes, of
If
course.
13,000 late-term abortions happen, is that a problem?
These are completely.
So this was from before. I hope I didn't skip it too much. But when he was trying to make an argument, oh, this is statistically irrelevant. Why are we talking about this? This is the context following behind there.
different things.
Well, how so?
Okay, so if someone dies by a gun, have they been shot? Were they killed? Did they kill themselves? Was it a suicide? Was it a
That's a
gang
good- that's a-
violence thing?
that's-
Who knows?
that's a good question.
Can I clarify? I don't wanna argue, I just
Hold
wanna
on,
clarify.
I need to answer this.
But
In the
let-
case
can
of
I
late,
address
yeah,
what you
but,
just said?
yes, but in the case of late-term abortions, more often than not, when statistics say, and when they are polled, they say the reason that they are giving it is because it's a medical complication that could result in the death of either the mother or the child.
Right. So let's. Can we make the argument then that the use of guns on people are allowed
The use of guns of people are
to end their lives is allowed? Would
so
you
that's
make that
murder. You're describing murder.
So if Colorado, for instance, passes a law saying there is no medical requirement for an abortion, is it wrong to kill the baby?
You're talking about. You're trying to compare murdering someone with a gun to a woman having to make a medical decision that.
No, it's the same thing. To me, it's the same thing. You're killing the child. Someone's killing the person with a gun. It's the same thing. It's not different. You may feel like it's different, but it's not. It's the same thing. A life has been taken. A life has been ended based on a decision. The person's decision to pull the trigger and a woman deciding to take a procedure to kill her child. Simple. Like, this is why I say, like, the only honest argument to have for abortion is you have to admit that it's a life, because all the evidence prove that it's a life. Two humans have a baby. What is it going to be? A human. Okay. If it's human, does it deserve human rights? Most people will say yes. Okay. So that is a human fetus, right? A human offspring, right? No matter how you want to define it, no matter how much your perception is, oh, I recognize it as a fetus. Oh, I recognize it as a baby. It doesn't change the fact that it's a human being. So it's a life. So how can you justify killing it? And that's why the pro-choicers or the pro-abortion people, they don't want to have this argument about life. They just try to make it about the woman's rights, the woman's rights, the woman's rights. When I subscribe to a logic, hey, your rights end where another person's begin. And what rights do you have to end someone else's life without their consent, right? Because that's a big thing for the left. Consent is a big thing for the left. But when it's convenient for them, oh, we don't need consent. We don't want consent. Everyone should get vaccinated against their will. But then when it comes to other things, oh no, consent is necessary. As long as you have the consent, it's justified. If the person wants to get gender reassignment surgery, so be it. Allow them to do it. Like it's picking and choosing their position, but I digress.
To basically preserve her life.
No.
or-
I said
or
not
death.
a medical reason. That's what I'm saying.
Should she have the ability to have an abortion for any reason? Yes.
At 9
No.
months.
At 9 months, I would say at 9 months, because it only happens according to the stats based on complete medical necessity. She has a right to do it.
No.
She should have a right.
Hold
She should have a right to do it.
on. Colorado legalized abortion up to 9 months with no medical reason required. Do you agree with that?
I agree with that decision. Yes.
So the baby could survive on its own, and the mother is legally now allowed to just end its life.
She has the right if she wanted to. You're saying so in Colorado?
To me, pro-abortion people, to be honest, to be logically honest, they'll have to say that the woman has the right to choose life or death for her child. That's the only tenable position I can see where you can logically argue that and still make sense. But what they try to do is they try to make everything seem like, oh, it's for the greater good. I'm doing it for the best of humanity. They try to position themselves as the left always try to take a righteous position. This is why they get stuck in these illogical or these contradictions. He said, hey, it should be justifiable for all. But shouldn't you add some restrictions? Right? Like for me, if you're trying to justify, hey, women need abortion for medical reasons such as incest, grape, and medical reasons, I say, okay, can we ban all other abortions if we just keep those exceptions accessible?
Nope.
I'm still gonna get a nope from a lot of leftists because they're being disingenuous here. Is they're using the fact that abortion is used for grape, incest, and medical reasons as a justification for the 99% of the majority. So you're using the exception to justify the rule. When the rule is most women, 99% of them, get abortions for convenience, not for medical reasons, not because they got raped, not because they were in an incestuous relationship. No, a small minority of cases of abortion. Majority of it is healthy baby would have been a fine healthy baby if it was taken to term. They just didn't want to. That's most abortions, and that is what I would subscribe that should be limited and that should be banned. So all this attack, oh, we need abortion for this case. Okay, specify just for those exceptions. Everything else, no go. You're still gonna get a
nope,
because they're trying to use those exceptions to justify what they want for their convenience. Because abortion is not about medical moral reasons. Oh, what's best interest of the woman is, hey, we believe the woman should be able to choose life or death for her child. That's their real position, but they know they can't lead with that position because that's not a very justicey, very moral, very righteous position to have in our society. Very hard to defend that position. It's hard to look good with that position, and I think that's their real position. But I digress.
And
It's not a trick question. You're allowed to
I know,
believe that.
but I'm asking you because you're the one who brought this up. I don't know what Colorado's specific law says. So if you were saying that in Colorado, women have the ability at 9 months to have an abortion for any reason, they could just decide that they're
Elective,
born.
yeah.
Okay, I think they should have the right to do that, but the stats show that they're not doing that. But they should have a legal right to do that. Yes, it's their body, it's their choice, of course.
So this is what I disagree on. I think if the baby needs to be removed from the woman, there's no reason to kill it. You know what I mean? Like you could just C-section and then put it for
But
adoption.
I'm telling you that doesn't happen.
But it
does.
But hold on. Like
You might be able to bring up anecdotes, but the stats don't
didn't.
say
But
that.
hold on. Like, why allow it to happen? I just don't understand. Are you arguing?
because
Wait, hold on.
this is-
Are you arguing you oppose it And you think it's morally wrong, but you think it should be legal?
I think that women should have the right to decide what they do and have bodily autonomy over their own bodies.
We're not talking about her body. We're talking about...
It is her body.
No, it's not. So, and this is another thing. They treat, like, the left seems to treat a baby as an extension of the woman, when that baby has a separate set of DNA. The baby's an independent, separate being from the woman. The woman can do whatever she wants with her body, but she can't really necessarily should affect what's going on with the baby. Oh, I'm allowed to kill the baby. And this is the argument I'm talking about, where he's tried to frame Tim Pool as pro-birth, when Tim Pool is just saying, hey, you got the baby out of you already. The baby should live, for adoption. And he's going to go, you forced a woman to have a birth.
Bruh.
That 9 months, even if it's still inside her, it's still her body. Even if it's a viable
But we're
baby, it's
talking
still her
about the
body.
removal of the baby, yes?
The forceful removal of the baby, or
Forceful.
so she chooses to have that. She
The
should have the
woman
right.
says the baby must be removed from my body. Why kill the baby if they're removing it?
I don't think they should do that.
For real. The way, but it's just him being consistent. He's saying, hey, like, I don't agree with late term abortions. And for Tim, late term abortion is viability. If the baby's viable outside the womb, you shouldn't be allowed to kill it. That's Tim's position. Tim's consistent here. But this guy here, he don't believe in any restrictions on women's rights to choose. He wants women to have unfettered access to abortion. If a woman wants abortion at 9 months, so be it. If she wants to abort her baby right before she's supposed to deliver, so be it. Because that's what he's supposed to do. That's the script. And this is why Tim Pool is right when he says the left is in a cult. This is why the left is inconsistent. Because it's based on feelings. It's based on what we want. It doesn't matter if it goes against our principles or it contradicts a similar stance that we had in another issue. We want this outcome when it comes to abortion, and we want this outcome when it comes to vaccines. They don't use the consistent. There's no consistent like view of this stuff. It's just, hey, these are the answers you're supposed to say. Here's your script. Read the script, and that's it. No matter what, you have to defend the woman's rights to choose. That's it. That's all they care about. They don't care about if it's morally right. They don't care about if it's logical, if it's consistent. They just want what they want. That's why I said the left, all they care about is power. I want to win, and I want to have power. That's it. So right now he's having an argument. He's trying to win the argument. He's trying to find ways to make his position tenable or valid in my view. But to me, he's getting wrecked here. So I digress.
That I would if they asked me, Lance, should I do this? I would say no, but she should have a right. Yes, of course. It's her body still. That doesn't stop.
So, like, the woman is pregnant, the baby is viable and capable of surviving on its own.
Sure.
And she says, before it breaches oxygen, kill it. Do you think that should be allowed?
This is again the baby guillotines. This is why I brought that up.
But
what a weird scenario. This doesn't happen. This is not the real world.
But it does.
When?
And if the argument is that it doesn't happen enough for you to care, that's fine. You're allowed to believe that.
Sure.
What I don't understand is it seems like you...
And it's the same argument we could say about mass shootings. Mass shootings make up, 4% of gun deaths in America? I could say the same thing about gun deaths. But for some reason, Lefty, you care a lot about what happens with the guns, though. You care a lot about mass shootings, though. So then to go back and use the point, oh, it happens so rarely, I don't know why we're even talking about this, because you don't have an argument here. You can't really defend this position that you have about late term abortions. Like, oh, women should have unfettered access to abortion. No, I think the middle ground is abortion needs to be restricted. It used to be in 2008. The Democratic position on abortion was safe, legal, and rare. They didn't want abortion to be used as a form of birth control. Now in 2023, abortion is used as a form of birth control. And I'm against it. That's why I'm happy with Ron DeSantis. He passes the bill, 6 week. You're not allowed to abort a baby after 6 weeks. I'm like, yo, that's
Bruh.
make your decisions. I want it at 0, but hey, the more lives will be saved, right? Because this is the pro-abortion people. They don't have an argument. They don't have a consistent, logical argument for why a woman should be allowed to end the life of another human being. If you're a pro-abortion person, you're arguing for the woman to have the right to choose life or death for her child because it resides in her body. That's like me saying, hey, I have the right to kill anybody on my yard because they're in my property, they're in my space. Craziness, but I digress.
your position is a rather shocked position where you recognize there is something inherently wrong with taking the life of a baby that could survive on its own, but you're also taking the tribal position of women should be allowed to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's what he's doing.
No.
Tribal
If you were to
position.
ask me, Tim, hey, Lance, do you think it's a good idea if this woman who's 9 months pregnant, suddenly she got bored with the pregnancy, she doesn't want to have it anymore, but the baby's viable? Do you think that's a good thing to do? I would be like, no, of course not.
Then why should it be allowed?
Because it's still her right. It's still her body.
But the
Bodily
baby-
autonomy doesn't stop
the
at my
baby-
morality.
the
Tim,
baby
it's
is
not
being
my
removed,
choice.
right?
It's not my, yes, but that's not my
Why
choice.
kill it? Why
But
kill it?
That's her choice, not mine.
So if she wants, and this is my problem, bro. Like, what is this subservient? Like, women, like, is the same thing with the criminals. Oh, he should be able to do what he wants. He's having a mental episode. Like, why we have to have all this understanding for other people? End of the day, society's interested in the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. That's what's in our Constitution. And as a country, we're like, hey, should the government protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Yes. Okay. What about that fetus what about that baby that's in your womb right now that's only 8 weeks old? That baby, that human being in your stomach don't deserve life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? Pro-abortion people have to say no. This is why they go with, it's not a human, it's just a clunk of cells. This is why they do these, they say these dehumanizing language, because they know if they admit it's a human, then they know what's going to come after. You know, the pro-life, we got the whole argument ready to beat them over the head with, because we don't have to make a religious argument. We could just make a human rights argument, natural law argument. Human rights? Oh, human rights. Human life deserves human rights. Right? Yes. Okay. Is it a human or not? Yes, it is. Just, it doesn't matter if you recognize it or not. Just like it doesn't matter if I recognize that someone's a girl or a boy, they exist. The baby exists. The baby's human, right? We don't live in a chaotic world where a woman can give birth to a tiger. No, that's not the world we live in. It's an orderly, structured world. We know if two humans get together, they're gonna have a human baby, and that human baby deserves as much rights as you do. So a woman's rights does not override a human being's rights. And that's the hierarchy that the left seems to have. The hierarchy is the women, then the child. When we're saying, hey, no, they're equal. The human and the child are equal. The woman and the child are equal. Right? The woman's not allowed to be like, oh, the woman has authority over the child. Yes. The woman is responsible for the child. Yes. But the woman shouldn't be able to make a choice that will kill the child. We call child services when they do that. But for some reason, when it comes to abortion, because it's in her body, all of a sudden she gets to decide what to do with the baby. To me, it's almost like they want women to view their babies as accessories. It's my will to do whatever. If I want to discard my phone, I can discard my phone. This is how they want to treat babies. Oh, I don't want this phone anymore. No, it's a human life. It's an independent being from you. It doesn't exist solely for you. It exists independently from you and treat it as such. But it's just a different view, right? But it's my right to advocate for that to be law. Just like it's your right to advocate that gun control should be a thing, right? Even though only a small minority of people die from mass shootings, you still want the AK-47s to be banned. You still want semi-automatic rifles to be banned because you felt like they're dangerous. But then you want to say, oh, it's not based on my morality. It's not based on my morality. This is what I'm talking about. The inconsistency. You want to argue for, oh, we shouldn't pass laws based on subjective viewpoints, but based on your subjective viewpoints, all of a sudden, oh no, it's logical, it's factual, it's righteous, it's a moral thing to do. But when the right does the same similar argument, oh, you for some reason your morality supersedes ours. When we're created equal, they're supposed to either cancel each other. It either is justified in all situations or no situation. And that's the argument we're trying to, and even then, even if I apply that same principle, pro-life still have a valid argument. Say, hey, doesn't our country protects people's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? And I heard an interesting point that a black pro-life woman made before. She said all the arguments that slave owners used to make for slavery, pro-abortionists are using to justify abortion. Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to take care of the slaves? How the slaves going to feed itself? The slaves need us. Who's going to pick our cotton? How's the baby's gonna fend for itself? Who's gonna take care? Oh, if we put the baby in an orphanage, it's gonna have a bad childhood. It's better to kill it. Imagine that. It's easier to just kill the baby than to reform the country or reform the orphan system, the adoption system to better take care of the baby. Imagine that, bro.
Bruh.
I'm just saying. But hey, I digress.
Fine.
Why kill the baby?
Ask her. Ask her.
Okay, so my point is simply
Exactly, purple honey. We never stop being a clump of cells. We're still a clump of cells. Like it's ridiculous. And I even have a good argument too. If the whole point is what separates you from a fetus to you now, the only difference is time. What separates a 9-month baby versus a 6-week baby? Because I have my wife's pregnant. My wife has my second son. He's unborn. He's 8 months old. But I have all his ultrasounds. We can detect. We have signs of life. The ultrasound picks up the heartbeat. They'll say it's manufactured noise, but I said, oh, the manufactured noise is reacting to something in the womb. No, if it picks up a sounds of life and it mimics the impulse that it picks up from the womb, right? Doesn't that prove life? Oh, it's just electrical impulses. It don't mean anything. Your heart still beats with electrical impulses. What are you talking about? You still have the same DNA that you had at the fetus level. At conception, you still have your gender was already known from conception. Because XX, XY, that's the start of life. Conception. You have your DNA and all. The only difference is more time passed. That's it. So you want to judge if something's alive or not based on how long it's been alive. That's the argument. So then I'm gonna go down. Okay, what separates a 6-month-old baby from a 9-month-old baby? Nothing. It's just bigger. You're still the same being. You're still the same being. Only something alive can grow. Name me a dead thing that's dead and it grows. Name me one.
Bruh.
Thank you, purple honey. Like, yo, it's craziness, bro. Like, it's just like, hey, life doesn't begin at your perception. It begins at conception, right? That's I think I stole that line from Officer Tatum. Life doesn't begin at your perception, right? Because then if my perception is it's not a life until it's 2 years old, people will call me crazy. Okay, what's the difference between that statement and saying it's not a life at 6 months years old?
Bruh.
Nothing. The metric is still the same. I'm judging it based on time. So if time is not an accurate assessment of valuing what is a life and not, then couldn't it be a more accurate distinction to not justify something based on how long it's been alive? But yeah, I digress. I mean, it's crazy. People say, oh, I don't believe it's alive, therefore I should kill it. Okay, I don't believe 3-year-olds are alive, so therefore I should be able to kill a 3-year-old because I don't believe it's alive. No, you're still going to go to jail for murder. And all we're saying is, hey, we got to be consistent here. But yeah, I digress.
this. You don't need to be shocked by it. You are allowed to have that moral position. I think most people in America would prescribe that to be would ascribe evil to that.
Yep.
Sure.
But that's
the
the
idea. You can
that
ascribe evil to whatever you want. That's up to you. That's
but
your choice.
The idea that you would say
Doesn't mean that she should
the woman
legally be
wants
Until we convince the majority to agree with us. And this is why I'm saying pro-life people still have work to do. We still have to make these arguments. We still have to go out there, provide pregnancy centers, life centers, whatever, to make it easier for people to make a decision we think is better for them, their child, and society as a whole. Because abortion, the most aborted baby in America is a black baby. And there's stats that show that, and not stats, but there's a theory I have. In 1972, when Roe v. Wade became the law of the land, if at that moment we became a pro-life country and abortion was banned in 1972, currently in 2023, the black community would have been the second largest voting bloc in America. You don't think that comes with a lot of political power? Yep, it does. But we don't have that. No, we don't have that. Why? Because black women abort their babies at a disproportional rate compared to everyone else. But you don't hear the left crying systematic racism. Another inconsistency of the left. The left will say any racial disparities that negatively affect black people is racist. If I bring up this abortion point, they won't say it's racist.
Nope.
Or they'll stutter. They'll, yeah, the most aborted baby is black baby. Does that mean abortion is systematically racist? Does it mean abortion is racist?
Bruh.
They got no comeback for that. Even though Planned Parenthood was founded by a racist eugenics. She believed that black people were weeds in this country. So effectively, the black community is doing exactly what she wanted them to do. But, this is what I'm saying, that inconsistencies of the left. But I digress.
Once the baby removed, and then in the process, instead of letting the baby live, remove it but kill it, right? There's no reason to do that. You can give the baby.
I think the number is like 400,000, because 1 million abortions happen every year in the United States. So 40% of that is 400,000 black babies that's dead every year in this country. And I'll show you the negative consequences of that for the black community. Stagnant population growth, right? Hispanics is about to overtake us soon because they're having more kids than us. And in New York, there's another thing. In New York, a black baby is more likely to be aborted than born in New York City. Crazy, huh?
Bruh.
But I digress,
For adoption, you can drop the baby off on the doorstep of a post office.
I agree with you. I'm not disputing
So why
that.
legalize, even if it's one? Why legalize? You see, this is the craziest thing.
Because her autonomy should not be cut off based on your morality. Because you don't think that idea is good. You don't like it.
But the baby's been
that's
removed
not where
from
we
her
should determine
body.
it. Well, that's if it was removed from her body and it was still viable, right? And that's where the baby guillotines come in, because I don't think this happens. I don't think women on the 9th month get abortions with viable living children and then be like, I don't want it, kill it. I don't think that happens.
You don't have to think it happens, but statistically it does, because your entire argument is this only happens for reasons of the health of the mother or the health of the unborn child.
I said
so. You believe it
I
only
said the
happens because there's
statistics show that at the 9th month, if a woman is going to have an abortion, it's typically because it's a medical complication that could either endanger her or the child's life.
And what I am saying
so
is there are doctors who will justify that by saying the medical complication is she is depressed. That is literally one of the reasons given in surveys of women. And another reason that is given is that
crazy.
the man who I was going to be with.
Okay, but Seamus, I got to stop you because this is a nebulous argument that doesn't get anywhere, and I can respect the point that if you go to if you try and look this up, you're going to find left-wing sources and right-wing sources that will contradict each other. So my question,
my thing is, I don't care about left-wing sources or right-wing sources. I just care what is more probable, like what is more true, right? And I think a lot of the abortion debate stems from the fact that there's no common ground. There's no common truth that we can agree upon as a, hey, it's a life. And the left can honestly say, hey, a woman has a right to kill it because the baby is her baby. She gets to decide if it gets to live or die. I think that's a more honest discussion about abortion. But that's not what we're having. We're having a debate of, oh, is it alive? Is it not alive? And then you're here trying to argue foundations to try to create a middle ground so you both can have a common point of reference to actually ground the debate on. But the pro-abortion side, they don't want to have this conversation. So they keep trying to make it about the women's rights when they like to use the argument, it takes two to make the child, right? But it only takes one person to determine whether that life gets to that baby gets to live or die.
Bruh.
I find it very hypocritical, but hey, that's what I said. Hey, the left is not consistent. Takes two to make the baby, but only takes one person to decide if it gets to live or die. And that one person that gets to decide if the baby gets to live or die also can determine if a man becomes a father or not, regardless if the man wants to be or not. And then even if he don't want to be a father, the government will come in, step in, and force him to provide child support for the child that he didn't want. Does that sound fair? Inconsistencies. I'm just saying. If it's her body, her choice, then shouldn't all the responsibility be on her hand? On her end of the bargain? If she has all the authority, she should have all the responsibility. So if she decides to keep that baby alive, she should be taking care of the baby by herself. It shouldn't be subsidized by the government with WIC, child support. Because to me, child support is a pro-life position, right? I can agree having child support if we were a pro-life country, but we're not. So in my view, child support shouldn't be a thing, because if a woman gets to choose if a baby gets to live or die, then you shouldn't force a man to pay for a choice that another individual made, regardless of his input or not. That's asinine, right? I can't force other people to pay a phone for me. If I made the decision to buy a phone, I have to be the one to pay for it. So why the hell I get to, I'll get this phone and it's on, and you have to financially support my decision to buy a new phone. Like that's how we treating child support. All I'm saying is there needs to be a lot of reforms in this country, and I think a lot of current politicians don't want to have that conversation. But hey, that's what we're here for. We're here advocating for certain positions because I think a lot of things in the government needs to get shaken up and needs to get fixed. That's why I like Vivek so much for the GOP, because I feel like he's going to bring up a lot of these ideas that need to be changed for a long time. And I just think the boomers don't want to have this conversation. But I digress.
Is strictly on the legality of terminating the life of a child. I can sit here and pull up, hey, here's one. Women abort Down syndrome babies late term rather frequently. I think that's wrong. I don't think that someone's life is forfeit because they have Down syndrome. But if your argument is that they do.
No, it's not. That's a straw.
No.
That's not a straw man.
Your argument is that women have a right to terminate a baby for any reason at any point.
My head hurts.
They should have the bodily autonomy to make that decision.
So what I'm saying is, in the circumstance of Down syndrome, I think it is wrong to terminate a baby's life at 9 months simply for having Down syndrome, but you would agree she is legally allowed to do so.
I think she should be legally allowed to do so. Whether or not I think that's a good idea is irrelevant.
Well, then there's the clarification. I think it should be illegal.
Okay.
I think.
See, and this is my thing. Most people, when they argue, when they advocate for a position, they usually have it's illegal. I want this into being law, but I should have clipped this better. But I think, let me see.
Just let them kill the baby regardless. I don't see any logic there. I don't see how that makes sense morally or ethically or just mathematically.
Right. So you said I'm pro-abortion. What I'm against is forced birth, and I don't think the state should be forcing women to give birth against their will, which is what your position and your position is.
So
he's reimagining the position. Remember, we clearly heard what Tim said. Tim said if it's viable, you shouldn't need to kill it. It's still out of your body. The woman doesn't have to take care of it. Send it to an orphanage. That's it. But this guy's still trying to characterize Tim as being pro-birth. Whatever the hell that means. But hey, I digress. Let's go.
So I'm against that. I think that's creepy big government shit. I don't think they should be forcing them and turning them into these viable wombs against their will.
I completely agree. I'm against forced birth, just like you.
Cool.
Except my difference is that if the baby's at 8 months and can survive, they can take the baby out as if they would have an abortion, but not kill it in the process.
If it's a viable at 8 months, is it viable?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is viable at 8 months, dude. There have been babies after 20 weeks.
Bro,
that
your
have
whole
been.
position is that women have a right to kill the baby even if they end the pregnancy, and there's no logic there.
The logic is that I don't think you agree with forced birth.
Here we go.
At a point. How at 8 months? At 8 months, Tim Pool thinks forced birth is fucking cool and poggy.
Stop making up stupid bullshit.
But
Tim bad.
That's what
Nonsense statement. Because I already said I agree with you. A woman should be able to end her pregnancy whenever she wants. A woman could end her pregnancy whenever she wants. Say it. Tim Pool said a woman can end her pregnancy whenever she wants.
Yeah, but I demand aborting and giving birth are both ending a pregnancy.
Make up something fake. Tim Pool agrees with forced birth as a
Yeah, see, I imagine what your position is, right? Tim clearly said, hey, I'm against forced birth. Because technically, I don't count C-section as a birth, but, he might count that as a birth. And this is the problem that we sent for him. Dunner-Kruger effect. He don't know nothing about what's going on. And then when Tim calls him out, hey, articulate birth, he's stuttering.
A false statement, you're lying. I have already said I believe that women have a right to terminate their pregnancy up to a certain amount of time.
At 8 months is where you draw the line.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you just said that. If the baby is viable, that she shouldn't have the right to be able to terminate it.
To kill the baby.
Yes.
I said she can end the pregnancy whenever she wants.
And ending the
pregnancy. Like, imagine that. My wife gives birth to my first son. The pregnancy is ended. My kid is still alive. That's what Tim Pool just said. My God, bro. Yo, I swear, bro. I swear, sometimes I think certain people don't live in reality. I don't think this is a leftist thing, but I just say a lot of leftists tend to be like this. A lot of emotion, a lot of idealism, but no pragmatism to their ideas at all. That's what Tim was saying. No logic. You're just being tribal. Oh, I'm against forced birth. And they don't force you to engage in the actions that created the child in the first place. But hey, that's another conversation. This is not a great case. Hey, Hey, Abby, nice to join in.
He can be giving birth or aborting the
Or a
baby.
C-section that keeps the baby
so
alive.
she has to be forced to give birth against her will in a
so-
C-section.
Against her
but
will.
The baby's viable and they give it
So
off.
how do they remove
So
the
hold
baby?
on.
at
Either
8
way, the
months?
baby comes out of her. You're saying that it's more
so you literally want forced birth. You literally want to force women to give birth
hold
against their
on.
will.
So,
Can
so,
I just
so you're saying
interject here?
Yeah.
Can I
you're,
please
you're
just
saying
make-
they should use the tools to rip apart the body
Oh
and
my
pull that
God.
out. Whereas I'm saying they should just take
No,
the
I'm
baby
saying
out.
she should have the right to decide what happens to her body. That's it.
Okay, but either way, the child is coming out. You're making this argument about forced birth. Either way, what is in her body is going to be outside of it. The question is it okay to shove forceps into the skull of the small person who's inside of her and then tear them apart limb by limb to get them out? Or should we say, no, that's not an acceptable way of delivering a baby. You shouldn't kill that unborn child.
It's not like I'm against abortion, like all cases, most of the time. But from a pragmatic sense, right? From a if I'm being pragmatic here, I'll say, hey, 6 weeks, I think that's enough time, right? My middle ground is, for cases of rape, incest, and medical reasons, that should be the only exception we should allow abortion. Everything else is banned. The left will still say no, right? And Tim Pool said, hey, I'm against forced birth, just like you. My difference is if the baby's viable or survives the abortion, you shouldn't be allowed to kill the baby. And now this guy here, the lefty here, he's trying to, not Seamus, the other guy, he's trying to characterize Tim Pool as being pro-birth, that he only agrees with him up to 8 months. When most people are against late-term abortions, right? And I think as people who are pro-life, and we have a lot of work to do. Is we gotta advocate more and push more towards the general public, more towards our position. And I think we have the better argument, right? The pro-abortion people don't want to have the argument about where life begins because they can't really justify their perception of, it's not a life, it's not a life. We're just a clump of cells, even though we're still a clump of cells. I'm like, okay, what separates me from being a clump of cells at 27 years old compared to when I was a fetus in my mom's womb 27 years ago? Nothing.
Bruh.
All I did was get bigger. So you're justifying based on time whether someone's alive or not, and that's very arbitrary. To me, is either it's a life or not. It's very binary for me. It's a life or not. If it's always a life, then it's always a life. If it's not a life, then it's always not a life. But that, you see, when you try to get the left to clarify their position on this, they don't have this discussion. And I think the biggest issue with the abortion discussion is the left don't want to, the pro-abortion people don't want to have a common foundation to argue from, because if you set the record straight, if you can set up a foundation that, hey, it's a life, it's a tougher argument for the pro-life people to be like, oh, it's a woman's rights. Well, we'll say, hey, it's a separate in the human rights. It has human rights. It's a separate entity from the woman. So, I mean, if you go into there's no such thing as forced birth. If you engage in actions that produces a child, then you knew what you were getting yourself into. I mean, sex ed is taught everywhere in our education system. Like, I don't understand how people get this idea of forced birth, but I digress.
How is that for either way it comes out of her body? Either way the child comes out of her body. It's not as if there's one scenario where the pregnancy magically disappears and doesn't leave the body.
Let me add, forced birth is a nonsense politics statement.
But in your scenario, she's being forced to give birth against her will. Like, she can't
She's
decide.
already pregnant, dude.
I know, but
we're not talking about forcing her to do anything. She's pregnant.
But then endorse that position.
I did.
Stick by it.
No, I
did.
reject there's no such thing as forced birth. They're saying you can't kill that baby.
Let me tell you how fascinating this is.
Because she
the
has
left
the baby inside her.
is so
Yes, she does.
fervent
Yeah,
about legalizing the killing of a baby at 9 months that I can sit here and say I think women should be able to terminate their pregnancy whenever they want. But if the baby is viable, there's no reason to kill it.
She has to be forced to give it. Then she has to be forced to give birth and then give the baby up.
It seemed, and I always said this, like, the pro-abortion argument is, like, the honest argument is, hey, women should be the arbiters of life and death for their child. That's the only consistent position I see, that you can actually have a rational, logical discussion with them. But they know it'll make them look like the good guys here, and I think that's what he's worried about. He's trying to look like the good guy. Look, I'm fighting for women here. Like, it's all about looking good, not being good. And that's how I take his statements here. He's just trying to look good. Oh, I'm fighting for women. Look, I'm fighting for women. But are you fighting for what's right though? life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Does an unborn baby deserve that? My view, yes, it does. At conception, yeah, it's a life. Now, to have the honest debate, pro-abortion people have to admit that they're viewing this not objectively but subjectively. Hey, I don't believe it's a life because it's not big enough for me to think it's a life. Even though, like, in my son's ultrasound, I've been seeing this kid since he was 3 weeks. This kid's a life, bro. Pick up his heartbeat already. And even though they try to use this narrative, oh, it's manufactured noise, the ultrasound is picking up signals from the uterus, from the womb, from the baby. It's tracking something. It's reacting to something. So what's the source of that reaction? That's my argument. Even if you're trying to say, oh, it's just electricity going through the body. What's beating on your heart right now? Electricity. To me, there's nothing changed from when you were conceived up till now. You just have all the things you needed. All you did was get bigger. That's it. The only thing that separated you from a fetus and now is time. And it's crazy, right? I take a black and white stance, right? It's either a life, it always was a life, or it never was a life. And you usually in that dichotomy, the left don't want to they don't want to take a pick. Oh, it's more nuanced than that. That's very reductive. They'll try to run away from that. But yeah, I digress. Let's finish with the video.
That's what you're saying.
Give birth. Define.
Yes. Okay. So that is forced birth, right? So she can't decide to terminate it at 8 or 9 months.
Define give birth.
You just said at 8 months if the baby is viable.
I didn't say 8 months. Define give birth. I'm trying to understand what you're saying by forced birth. What does birth mean?
You just said when she is at 8 or 9
it?
months. Okay, so she's at 8 or 9.
I said viable.
Okay, so it's viable. The baby's viable. She should have to give birth to it in some capacity. C-section, whatever.
Define birth, and I can answer your question.
Birth, the removal of a child into the world from a mother's womb.
So how do they do that?
The woman pushes the baby out.
So then what would you call an abortion at 8 months? Is the woman pushing the baby out?
No, it's most likely a medical procedure done by a doctor.
And what is that medical procedure?
An abortion.
He can, bruh. What is an abortion? That's the next documentary. Someone go make that right now, because it seems like he don't even know what an abortion is. An abortion. Describe it, bro. Like, come on.
What is that?
What is that? Like a video. Yo, Matt Walsh would be proud, bro.
What is an abortion?
Yes, like what?
How is it done?
Yes.
I'm not entirely sure how it's done in 8 months. I know.
Tim is a traditional liberal, right? He thinks that abortion should be rare, right? Not used as a form of birth control, right? His thing is he's pro-choice until the baby is viable, and I think viability is at 20 weeks. I heard someone say 20 weeks. I could be wrong, but yeah. To me, I was like, yo, he's more consistent than this guy. This guy's just arguing. I'm trying to appeal. I'm trying to look good. I'm trying to stay tribal. I'm trying to be tribal politics. I'm not actually trying to make sense. I'm not trying to tell you what I actually believe or if I actually have a position on this. But he's so passionate about it, or he's so against what Tim is saying, but he can't. It doesn't even seem like he's knowledgeable about the actual ways that abortion is done. But I digress.
Earlier on, it's usually done with a series of tools. I don't know how
Tools.
it's done at 8 or 9
Okay,
months,
so your moral argument is forced birth. I'm trying to understand what your position is. If you don't know how an abortion is done, then are you in favor of forced birth?
Am I in favor of forced? No, I'm against forced birth.
But you think that women should have to expel the baby, right?
It's
Abby, the quickest way. I stole this from Officer Tatum, Brandon Tatum. I don't know if you are who that is, but I stole this from him. Life begins at conception, not your perception, which means like life is an objective thing, not a subjective thing. So therefore, a subjective view on it can't justify something happening to it. You have to, like, to me, if you're gonna do something, make sure you actually get the reality of it. Like, hey, I'm ending a life here. Like, know what you're doing. Know what you're actually getting yourself into. This is why a lot of these abortionists, what they like to do is they like to play language games with the women. If they found that if they reference the unborn baby as a baby, the women were less likely to go through abortion than if they reference the baby as a fetus. So they know with their language how the perception of it is changed. So it's easier for you to do something bad when you don't fully understand the weight of what you're actually doing. And I think this is what they're doing with the language games. So yeah, I digress.
Completely fine for me not to know the medical procedure of how abortion is done to stand up for the rights of a woman's body. I don't need to know how people perform abortions directly. I'm not going to lie here. I'm not going to pretend.
Removing a baby from a woman's body is birth.
Oh, so you're saying it doesn't count?
No.
It's
I'm
birth
trying
of a different nature.
I don't think you have a definition, and I'm trying to understand what you mean by forced birth. But if you can't define the removal of the baby in a different way, I don't know what you're saying.
Birth, Tim, like the birth of a child.
So is a C-section a birth?
Sure. Yes, it is a form of extracting a living child that is viable to live in the real world.
That's how you define birth: extracting a living child to live in the real world.
No, I would define birth as someone giving birth. They are pushing a baby out of their body.
So I don't think women should be forced to do that, right?
You don't think women should be forced to push babies out of their body?
But the baby is in their body, so it's got to come out somehow.
So you take it out with a C-section.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
But I'm trying to figure out what you mean by this.
So that would be forced birth.
So
she's forced to give and make a child, a viable child, live in the real world.
I mean,
Outside
right,
of
so
her
when
body.
you're pregnant, the baby's going to come out of you at some point.
That's the
Either
point.
we rip
no
it
matter
apart
what
or
happens,
you give birth
the baby
naturally.
is coming out of the woman, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's no being in favor of that or not. It happens. Period.
Yes.
Okay. So what's your point?
Objective, it happens. Hey, the baby has to come out. Regardless. So his thing is, if the baby comes out alive, it's forced birth. That seemed like his position. Illogical, bro. Come on. And to me, if you get pregnant, to me, there's no such thing as forced birth. Like that's the body was. End of the day, I forgot. Sorry, this might sound messed up, but I forgot what story was. There was a woman. She was brain dead, and her body was still able to give birth to the child that she was pregnant with. So I don't know what forced birth are they talking about here. Because that's gonna happen naturally. Like if abortion wasn't a thing, there's no such thing as forced birth. It's just what it is. That's like me saying, I was forced life because I didn't choose to be here, so I was forced to live this life. Huh? It just is. There's no morality to it. But hey, it's just me speaking objectively.
What's my point?
Am I in favor of a natural process by which a woman has to have a baby removed from her no matter what anyone says or does?
Your point is that at 8 or 9 months, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, Tim.
You are wrong. Yes, I'll stop you right there because when you keep saying 8 or 9 months, that's not what I said over and over and over again.
Viability is after 6 months.
So that was everything. Whew. I got through 3 clips. It took me 2 hours and 40 minutes. But if I had to, I don't want the live stream to hit. If I had to guess, this guy, bro, inconsistent as hell. And
reviewed in the study by Ristori and Steensma indicate that for around
it is Steensma. I was right. I asked if this was Steensma. Okay.
So yeah, this guy's talking about transgenderism. If you guys want to watch the rest, watch the entire live stream with Tim. But my final thoughts is that with the whole abortion debate, my argument is that 99% of abortions are elective. That means women choose to have abortions. It's not because of medical reasons. Pretty much it's just, hey, the baby's an inconvenience. I want it gone. That's 99% of abortions. Less than 1% combined rape, incest, medical procedures make up only less than 1% of abortions that happen every year. That means what? 1 million abortions happen per year. Less than 1,000. 1%. I have to do quick math. My head hurts now. Yeah, less than 1,000 of those abortions are due to rape, incest, or medical procedures. That's crazy. So if let's say the pragmatic position in my view would be, okay, most people believe, because end of the day, politics is about being pragmatic. End of the day, most people still agree that there should be some access to abortion. So my argument would be like, okay, to push for people incrementally towards the path that I want, which is pro-life, like no abortion whatsoever, even in cases of rape, incest, because at the end of the day, the child's not responsible for the actions of the father, right? And there's a lot of people that were born under unfortunate circumstances, but they became great things in life, right? Christian, like here's a perfect example I like to throw at pro-choicers when they argue about women not having kids in the best situation. Cristiano Ronaldo, if anyone knows who that is a famous rich soccer player or footballer. as international people understand. And his mom tried to abort him, but her abortion failed. And now she's living the good life. Imagine if she succeeded aborting her kid.
Bruh.
She'll still be in poverty right now. And this is the argument I'll say. Like, for pro-life, regardless if the kid gives me great riches or not, he should deserve to live. But if I bet you, if you told someone who's pro-abortion and you told them, hey, let's play this scenario. Your kid will be a future millionaire. Would you still abort him? Even though you can't take care of him. I mean, you think you can't take care of him. It's going to be hard to take care of him. You don't have all the resources to give him like the best of the best, but he's able to make do with what you were able to give him, and he became a millionaire. Would you still abort the kid? Shoo.
Nope.
A lot of them will say no because they see there's a material gain from the child. I'm arguing from a principled position, like, hey, regardless if the kid has Down syndrome, regardless if my kid is gay, regardless if my kid's going to identify as trans in the future, he should still deserve to have the opportunity at life. While in the pro-abortion position, I don't think it's going to be as consistent, because if I throw a different amount of factors, I think their answers will change. I mean, let me know. Let me know if I'm lying, guys. She tried to kill the baby 3 times and realized he was a miracle child. It's craziness. To me, it baffles me, bro. But end of the day, the abortion debate, I don't think it's not going to get anywhere until people actually argue the fact, until we rectify or come to a common consensus about whether it's a life or not. My view is pro-life, it's a life. Strong indications of life, DNA, sign of life, right? The ultrasound's reacting to something in there. What is it? Heartbeat? Isn't heartbeat an obvious sign of life? Isn't movement an obvious sign of life? As a father, I saw my son 3 weeks, because my wife is currently pregnant with my son. He's 8 months right now. At 3 months, this kid was wiggling in the womb already. Movement, independently from my wife. Doesn't that prove life? Like, in a day, I'm like, hey, look at this evidence I found. Look at this empirical observation I made. And a lot of people who are so staunchly pro-abortion, I'll argue a lot of them don't understand. They've never seen an ultrasound before. They're not familiar with birth at all, right? But they're here making, oh, it's just a clump of cells. Okay. If you think it's a clump of cells, can we agree on this point? Let's make it law. And this is an argument I like to use against my pro-abortion, because at the end of the day, my wife's maid of honor is a feminist. So we argue like this all the time. I say, okay, let's make it a law where before a woman gets an abortion, she must see an ultrasound of the baby.
Bruh.
How you think that go? She agreed with me or disagreed? Disagreed, of course, because she knows it'll humanize the baby. This is why they use dehumanizing language. This is why they call it a clump of cells. This is why they call it a fetus. This is why they don't want to call it a baby. The biggest argument I heard, and I got this from Dennis Prager, and I think I'll close out the stream here. The best succinct conversation I could ever tell a feminist, where I could kind of prove that their view on abortion is purely subjective and not an objective scientific fact, is when they go to a woman and she sees she's pregnant, does she go up to them and ask them, how's your fetus or how's your baby?
Bruh.
We all know the answer. If your answer changes based on the perception of the mother, then that's not objective truth. Because if I could say, hey, that woman's a woman, even if she thinks she's a man, she's a woman, because objectively I can tell she's a woman. Wouldn't you be, if you're saying that the baby is not alive, couldn't you objectively say that, hey, this is a fetus, and in all circumstances you can call it a fetus because it's still in the mother's body, right?
Bruh.
I know this because I have a pregnant wife. No one has ever gone up to my wife and be like, how's the fetus? Because that's a even saying it is weird. Like, that's a weird way of saying, like, asking about how the baby's doing. That means it's based on perception. If the answer changed based on who you talking to, then it's not an objective fact. I'm just saying. To me, it's a baby in all circumstances. It's unborn baby, born baby. That's it. But hey, man, I digress. I think the same. We'll be talking in circles if we don't at least agree that it's a life. Exactly. And I think that's the biggest. Pro-abortion people know this. This is why they don't want to agree with the life argument. That's why they don't want to have the life talk, because they try to avoid the conversation because they know if they agree about it's a life, it's going to be a hard argument to make it. That's why they always try to make it about the woman. The woman. It's the woman's right. The woman right. What about the woman? The woman. The woman. You care about the child more than the woman. No, we don't care about the child more than the woman, but we recognize that, hey, they're equal. We're supposed to view their rights as equal. Your rights end where another's begin. And that's what we're trying to have a discussion about. But I'm gonna read some of your guys' comments before I close out. Bruh, my cousin actually told us recently that she tried to kill the baby 3 times and realized he was a miracle child. Oh, God bless that kid. It's a life, says Abby. I don't know how to say your last name. Shuang Sang. I think the same. We'll be talking in circles if we don't at least agree. I said that already. It is sad that these women believe they're being empowered by killing their babies. No one talks about the trauma and depression after going through it. Yeah, I think, to me, inadvertently, like abortion inadvertently seems like human sacrifice, right? Child sacrifice, right? Because the point of child sacrifice is you sacrifice your child so that way you can get prosperity and wealth and material desires in the future. And a lot of women, they think getting an abortion, like if they have a child early, it'll cripple them economically and they won't be able to succeed in life. And in my view, I've seen women graduate with their masters and they have like 3 kids, single mom. To me, having a child or not will not affect your economic outcome. To me, it may make it harder. You may have to be more disciplined about it, right? You may have to make more sacrifices to get the goal, right? I ain't saying, but to me, if you was going to be successful, regardless if you had the kid or not, you still will be successful. That's how I view it. But a lot of women, they have this idea that, oh, if I can't financially take care of the kid, then I should abort it. And I think this is because we have a lack of family structure, community. I don't know, man. I don't think is a like arbitrary reasons like economic factors and stuff. I don't think that's a good, because in a day when there was kids being born in World War II, there was kids being like, imagine our ancestors like 400 years ago, 500 years ago, war, famine, they were still having kids. But us, we can't give our kid all the toys and nice things that we want. Like, ain't gonna kill the kid, bro. I don't know. I have a different perspective because I was raised by a single mom in poverty. I mean, I was low middle class, right? So I was like, yo, I grew up in poverty. It wasn't that bad. Like, there was still some good that came about me being exposed to that. And just because you can't offer their kid the best life, you think that's a subjective view. It's not objective. But hey, I digress, man. She's on G. She on G. Okay. Oh, that's how you say it. Oh, that's cool. The more I talk and hear points against pro-choice, I must admit that I grow hatred for PR. The more I hear The more I hear and talk against pro-choice, the more hatred and evil I realize abortion is. I grew up poor too. I mean, it's not how you start, it's how you finish, right? I can't control what happens to me, but I can control how I respond. So I don't know. I think in my own in a way, you make the most of your life, right? You can blame your upbringing for so long, right? When I turned 18, I stopped blaming my parents for stuff. I stopped blaming how I was raised, and I started saying, "Hey, I can make decisions now. Now it's up to me to decide whether I end the life on a good note or a bad note. Because now it's all on me now." And I think I did pretty well, you know. But hey, I digress. Hey, I kept you guys up long enough. It's 11:59. It's 11:49 p.m. Eastern time here in Florida. I need to go to sleep because my back is hurting. I've been sitting on this chair for 2 hours and 52 minutes. I really do appreciate you guys. Watch the replay. We go in, like the video on your way out. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a good night. Have a blessed weekend, and I'll see you guys on the next live stream. I usually do the live streams at 9 p.m. I've been trying to do it a little bit earlier, but let me know in the comment section what time slots you think I should do, and I might change. I'm open to change the time slot because I'd rather do this a little earlier in the afternoon than later. But hey, I digress. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good one. Peace.